atop Mount Manitoba, the home of NotInHallOfFame.com, I present the third annual Not in Hall of Fame show, where we are going to get together and we are going to tell you who we think should be the semi-finalists for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And it is an all-star panel as each person sort of makes their way to say whatever it is they're going to say. Please introduce yourself and tell us why you're here, what you want to bring to the table, and where we can follow you. I, of course, Kirk Buckner, owner, operator, NotInHallOfFame.com. I'm going to plug my other shit because I can, because it's my show. The Fictitious Athlete Hall of Fame, the Fictitious Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and of course, the United States Athletic Hall of Fame. You can vote on that now, www.notinhalloffame.com/USA for the first ever American Hall of Fame sports class. No one came up with it, so I did. Yay, Canada, look at that. So, the way we've always done this before is we've always sort of like played from, we started from the bottom, now we're here. See what I did?
Yeah.
We're always sticking together.
Well, yes. So we're basically, what we're going to do is I'm going to introduce first all those who got no votes. So this is now going in the chat. So who would like to read them off?
Okay, I'll do it.
Oh, or Vinny.
I was gonna do it as well. I was gonna do. I guess I would go first, and then I'm like, Jesus Christ, this is a long list.
You know what, Ryan, why don't you do it? Why don't you read out the names? I mean, we both kind of like cancel each other out, so why don't you do it?
All right. Tier none, Jake DeLone, Jeff Garcia, Dave Krieg, Larry in the fullback, Dave Craig, Larry Centers, Vonta Leach, Jamal Lewis, Brian Westbrook, Joe Horn, Chad Johnson, Basheen Muhammad, Andre Rison, Roddy White, Wesley Walls, Matt Burke, DeBrickshaw Ferguson, Kevin Glover, Jordan Gross, Mark Schiller, I can't pronounce it. Shit.
Mark Schlereth.
Sharon, like I had I'm a Southern guy.
Not gonna ever make the Hall of Fame, so you can keep it moving.
All right, Chris Snee. All right, Chris Snee, Brian Waters, Eric Williams, Justin Tuck, Jesse Armstead, Navarro Bowman, Chad Brown, James Ferrier, Dre Bly, Nick Collins, Terry McDaniel, Alan Rawson, Bob Sanders, Adrian Wilson, Jeff Fiegels, Jason Hanson, John Cassay, Sean Landetta, Brian Longwell, Pat McAfee, Matt Turk, and Josh Cribbs.
So with that, we give you the Price is Right horn. Boom, 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 boom. Wow. We will not be talking about any of you. C'est la vie.
It happens.
It happens. It happens. So if you're
I was shocked about Jason Hanson. I honestly was, but we're not talking about them.
We're not talking about them. They did not get invited to this party. I will say that we had 20 votes in total, no unanimous. So with that, I would like to present to you those who were the highest vote getters.
That's our first year of not having, if I'm not mistaken, that has to be our first year of not having a unanimous vote.
It is.
Getter in the semis.
I've lumped 8 who I'm calling the tier 1. And I think with this group, I don't really think that we need to go any further. And I think we can just sort of say that this is the first 8, unless anyone here wants to object. Sound good?
Let's see the list.
Here it is.
And that's the total number of votes that they received.
Yes. So I'll read them out. So it looked like up until about the last last 4 votes, Devin Hester was going to be unanimous, but he was not. At 18 votes, tied with Darrell Rivas, Joe Thomas, Zach Thomas, and also DeMarcus Ware, Patrick Willis at 17, Rondé Barber at 16, Torrey Holt at 16.
No debates. They're all deserving. Especially
let's move them along. I mean, you're looking at, first of all, you're looking at 2 guys who our group put in last year, Hester and Willis. So as far as we're concerned, we've already kind of signed off on them. And then you've got I'm surprised that Joe Thomas wasn't unanimous, but that's fine. But you've got Thomas and Revis.
Mhm.
Holt's been in the semifinals now 7 straight years.
And a finalist last
And a
year. too,
finalist last 4. I'd have to pull up my doc.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good. I say just put him in and let's keep it moving.
Okay.
You know how we get.
We'll debate
My own
Zach
thing.
Thomas later, but yeah, we can go.
Yeah, no,
No,
exactly. Because I can say some things about Joe Thomas, actually. I'm not completely sold on him personally. I did vote for him, but saying that, that's for another time. I have no problem putting him as the other as our top 25. With that, now this is where we now try to save some people. There's a lot of people who only got 1 vote. And I don't know, but before we do that, do we want to say that they're eliminated? And I know you'll say, I want to see the list.
You got to see it first in order for us to say it.
Is
Yeah,
there a
let's-
second tier?
There is.
Okay, we got 15
How many are we
got
trying to
like 10
cut down
votes.
from now, Kirk?
We're trying to get to 25.
I know, but how many do we have left to,
We have 17 spots left.
and how many guys to fill them?
We started with
we-
129.
Yeah.
So then we had this whole big list of people who didn't get any votes, whatever that adds up to.
Sort of, these 8 are in by acclamation, basically, and
Okay.
we have 17 more slots to fill.
It sure sounds like, if they only got 1 vote, they're out. I'm just thinking from how many people got 1
We've
vote?
had some surprises. Let's hear it. Let's hear it from this.
That's
point.
actually-
We've had some
yeah.
surprises. Where one.
If there's an advocate, then the advocate steps up.
Okay, all right. So
Tom
let's,
Nailing, that's how he got big.
Yeah.
well, you won't have to wait for Nayland on this one. This is tier 9. These are the people with only 1 vote, and we're going to put that in the chats. And there's actually technically 3 more because somebody put in protest votes. I won't say who, Jack.
Shocker.
It wasn't a protest. It wasn't a protest to us. It was a protest to the man.
Well, you said do with it what you will, and I did do this.
I did. I think it's goofball that some of these guys who are real late in their run, in particular,
Mhm.
that you just lose a year. Carnell Lake, who was 1990s all decade. Herman Moore, who had 3 straight first team All Pro, and we're talking
And-
about
And
Yeah,
let's
shocking.
talk about Nayland,
Heinz
right?
Ward caught a pass from a wide receiver. Come on. Now. All right.
Hey,
Hey,
I'm
but
just
Jack-
asking you.
Couple shockers in there, couple shockers, but
All right, so let's
nothing I care that much about.
I admit I was the lone Jimmy Smith vote because Jimmy Smith deserves his flowers.
I think so too.
And Herman Moore, before you could make an argument that he was the greatest receiver before Megatron came to the Lions. And he was really good. It's just that the Lions wasted him and Barry Sanders.
And several other
Herman
people.
wasn't even in the 129,
Yes.
Yeah,
which
that's why
speaks to the flaw
those are
there.
those are the asterisks, Jeff. That was me not being able to abide those.
Your protest votes, you got
So-
Moose in there too. Good for
Someone
you.
put them in there just because.
Hey, why not? It's
Hey.
a free country. It's a democracy.
I
The election showed us.
I'm just
I
being
should have put one
realistic.
in then.
No.
I'm just being
American
realistic.
election
If I look at
today,
that,
none.
if I
Yeah,
look
I'm
at that
fine with it.
list, I don't see a single name that stands out that I could see like a big wave of support for the top 25.
Agree.
I see only one, and
Who- Who's that?
it won't be a surprise, but I see it, and there are other people here who I would love, but there's one in particular because I think he speaks to process, and I feel like I'm not alone in having said that Lorenzo Neal is the best pure fullback now into that era where fullback specialization, not just like you're another big back, even into the 80s where guys were still fullback, they were blocking back, but they were still runners. Lorenzo Neal defined that position and did so for over a decade, blocked for 7 to 8 consecutive 1,000-yard rushers, blocked for an MVP, blocked in a Super Bowl. And I feel like on the basis of process, if people are in agreement that Lorenzo Neal is the top fullback ever, or if you think it's someone else, if you think it's Moose Johnson, whoever it is, I just feel like fullback is such an unforgiving, essential position. It's an essential skill set. And if we think someone was the best at it, the same way that I was saying about Hester a few years ago, which now moot because I think everybody's come along, but if you think that he's the best ever, as I do, I think he needs to advance on the basis of having that respect conversation and acknowledgement that there is a road here, or we should create a road, because that's an unforgiving, grueling, powerful position where he distinguished himself. As I always said, he was Mike Allstott's lead blocker. That's how much of a fullback Lorenzo Neal was.
He said he was a fullback with a 12-inch tallywhacker. That's what Jack is telling us right now. I almost had, no, I will tell you, like, Jack, I almost had him in my top 25, and at one point I did, because I was kind of leaning with you. Like, I weighed back and forth between like him or Moose, like thinking to your statement about if you were the best ever at what you did for an extended period of time, like there's a track record there going back to even blocking for Adrian Morrell back in his early days with the Jets. Like, maybe if there's one, like, because he would be unique too, like to a lot of these other positions, like these guys are just kind of blend into the schmaz. That's the word of the day, Bill.
I'll
I
work
could-
on it later too then. Okay, got it.
I'm just trying to think, like, we have a lot of names, but it would be nice to hear a little more conversation about Lorenzo Neal compared to some others. So I kind of support Jack on this one.
So we can put him
We'll have a
through
vote.
to- well,
Let's just
sorry?
vote on him right now. Raise our
There you
hands.
go.
Whoever says,
Thank you, Thomas.
if we get enough votes, let's put it through.
That's a good way.
We can put him into what we'll call tier 8, where with all the people who got 2 votes. And even then it's going to be a lot harder. So, but I mean, I'm cool with that.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
I'm,
give it a
I'm,
nod.
in, I'm in the camp. I'm in the
feel
camp.
like-
I'm in
sorry,
that same camp as well. I mean, you think about like the fullback position, like seeing both Mike Allstott and Lorenzo Neal. Lorenzo Neal was such an integral part of those Titan teams when I was growing up, and Allstott was such a bowling ball. I mean, I remember watching the America's game about episode about the 2002 Buccaneers, and Sap would do the little impersonation of Allstott up the gut. You know, I mean, you know, they were just, those two were like the standard. They were like the last great fullbacks in the NFL. And I think, you know, and they don't, and Lorenzo Neal doesn't get his just due at all.
Well, the problem is Mike Allstott was a mediocre, like, mediocre performance-wise running back masquerading as a fullback, whereas like Lorenzo Neal was a legit, more traditional, like lead blocker, blocking fullback. And you can point to like the performances with LT. Like, that's where I think like there's differentiation. You put the list of 2 in there, Kirk?
Yeah, I didn't mean to do that this quickly, but it's there. So if we're putting in Lorenzo Neal, so I just added that. So here's what I'm thinking. This is tier 8. So this is the group that only got 2 votes. At this point, let's debate this group, and I say we only put 3 to advance to the group of 3.
Okay.
Yeah, sounds fine.
So I'll just read them out. We got Lomas Brown, Corey Dillon, Donald Driver, Jason Elam. Gee, I can tell I've got some Broncos fans here. Leroy Glover, Priest Holmes, Seth Joyner, Shane Leckler, Robert Mathis, Willie McGinnis, Steve McNair, Eric Metcalf, Wes Welker, Al Wilson. I know I've got some people who are going to pump for a couple of these people pretty hard. So I'm just going to open the floor and actually, I want to start off with, because we haven't heard from Dan yet. And I know who he's going to pump for because he did this a bit last year, but he wasn't with us the whole time through. Dan, can you, which of this group, I think I already know the answer, but I'd like to hear from you.
definitely. I think Willie McGinnis deserves some love, and he's the all-time Super Bowl sack leader, the all-time postseason sack leader, was the team leader on 3 Super Bowl champions. And as I've discussed in the past, if you look at 60s, 60s Packers, 70s Steelers, 80s 49ers, 90s Cowboys, they all have double, triple the amount of Hall of Famers that the Patriots of a 20-year span have. And they even have more, even if you include that Brady, Gronk, Belichick, and Kraft will all get in. They still have more than all those guys. So to me, to dominate for that long, and really he was the cornerstone of it. He was Bob Kraft's first ever draft pick. He played literally every position on defensive end, edge. Pete Carroll bulked him up by about 40 pounds and made him a position called elephant. But in their first Super Bowl win, his only job was to hit Marshall Faulk every play. And so stuff like that doesn't show up on the stats sheet. He's still the all-time postseason sack leader, Super Bowl sack leader. But in addition to that, it's the intangibles that I feel like we look to with a ton of these other guys that for some reason the Patriots era of dominance becomes more Brady or Belichick. And last year Seymour got in, which I looked at, I still saw my ballot from last year's 25. Richard Seymour was the only person that got in last year that I even had on my list of semifinalists. So I am not your guy to endorse you if you actually want to get in the Hall of Fame, apparently. But Willie McGinnis, I strongly feel deserves a considerably more of noteworthiness than he's received in the past.
Dan, question for you. Who, obviously removing Brady, and well, it sounds like you disagree with Seymour, so I'll leave that open. Who on the first group of Patriots, let's call it 01 to 07, up to the perfect game and the injury.
Yeah.
Who in that group to you would be your no questions asked, they got to be in?
Well, Ty Law and Richard Seymour are in. Those are the two in. Vinatieri, Gronk, Brady, Belichick will get in. And then
the first group.
Yeah, that's I'm still there.
Gronk was in the 2010s.
Oh, sorry, I threw in Gronk. You're right. Sorry. And then to me, the next group becomes Will Fork, Harrison, McGinnis. And I could certainly make an argument for, Wes Welker, Teddy Bruschi, but we'll be here for 8 hours if I go to bat for everyone. So to me, that's the next group is McGinnis, Will Fork, and Harrison that aren't in from those years.
Curious, thank you.
All right.
Yeah, I would
Dan?
personally comment to you as well, Dan, because me growing up as a Gen Zer, when I think of the most dominant team growing up, it's always been the New England Patriots. And while everyone's talking about, Brady, Kraft, and of course Belichick, I always know that in order to make it to 9 Super Bowls, to win your division that many times, and to win 6 championships, yeah, obviously Brady and Belichick and also Kraft are a big part of that. But I know that this is the dynasty of my lifetime. And in general, I feel like if we're going to put in so many Packers and so many Steelers for their dynasties over the years, I would understand why we can't do the same for the Patriots, even though the narrative is more so for, Belichick. In reality, they were very much about the team first and foremost, so you're not going to see their main impact on the stat sheet. However, I believe that considering their dominance and because of just how successful they were, it's important to at least give more recognition to those Patriots teams, as those were elite defenses. When I thought of it, it was Brady and the defense for those entire years, especially in the early years. So yeah, I have no issue. I think, the Patriots deserve to have more reps.
I'm just trying to think through one thing, Dan. Like, as I think about McGinnis, I agree he's underrated. I'm trying to differentiate between like underrated versus Hall of Fame resume. How are you thinking about his like kind of lower end sack totals? Because I think he was in the 80s in career sacks. I think it's like 85, something like that.
Right.
Like,
And if you
he
notice,
played a long time.
So what the Patriots rolled out for years was guys that just took up blockers, which was Seymour's primary job. I actually thought Seymour was never going to get in. And if you had asked me a question last year, who's the number 1 Patriot that deserves to be in, I would have picked Seymour, no doubt. Because some plays he just took up 3 blockers and did nothing else. And then everyone else Teddy Bruschi makes 12 tackles. So McGinnis had a lot of the similar role. So he doesn't have huge sack totals because that wasn't really his role. And at some points it was, all right, now Seymour and McGinnis, they're going to flood one side, and Mike Vrabel has a 10 sack season. Andre Carter had a 10 sack season. Mark Anderson had a 10 sack season. So you're just causing so much disruption between Will Fork, Seymour, McGinnis that the others, Tully Banta-Kane had 10 sacks for the Patriots. So you're just rolling out guys on the other side that have a free pass, and obviously lockdown corners from Ty Law to Asante Samuel briefly, and then Revis, etc. So it's just kind of the Patriots style. And at some point, you just kind of wonder who deserves the credit for those wins. And to me, if you think about a Hall of Famer, it's kind of whose career would you most want to have? And I would rather have Willie McGinnis' career than, I was surprised that Sam Mills got in last year.
The Saints
For
fan too.
example. So to me, I would have taken Willie McGinnis over Sam Mills. And I'm not even saying Willie McGinnis deserves top 5. I think he certainly deserves top 25.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think through because was Lawyer Malloy on the list anywhere? I'm just trying to
I
think
don't
through
think
those
he
Patriots.
was.
Lawyer Malloy was only part of the first Super Bowl, and then he got released prior to 2003. They replaced him with Rodney Harrison.
Well, I remember
and-
that. But I'm
and
also
Harrison
thinking like he
was
was
better.
technically there in '96 too, the first time they went to the Super
Right,
Bowl.
right. Was on and that was another thing about you can say from McGinnis and Vinatieri and Brewski is they also had that other AFC championship that people forget about that I thought they were going to win.
Yeah.
I want to open up, Ken, our special guest, and thank you so much for joining us. When you're looking at this list, and when you sent me yours, you said there's a few people that you thought, I don't really see them getting in, but I want to. Well, I think we all sort of did that just to get some conversations going. I'm wondering if there's anyone that you've seen so far, just from the 2s, 1s, whatever, that you were a little surprised of their total or low total, and if there's anyone you want to sort of like stump for.
I mean, I would say Lorenzo Neal. I'm surprised about the low numbers there. I mean, Jack laid out the case very well on him as far as why he belongs. So of this list here of the 2s, I mean, Lorenzo Neal, I think definitely deserves to move up. I would also agree with everything that Dan said about Willie McGinnis. I mean, again, I don't have him in top 5 or top 10, but I definitely think he needs to be up in the conversation for the top 25. And, kind of going out there, special teams really doesn't get a whole lot of love with the selection committee. So, I mean, obviously we're looking at Gary Anderson, and I'm guessing his name's probably going to come up later on. But, you look at this list of 2s here, Shane Leckler. I mean, I know Vinny seems to be a pretty big fan of his, but I do believe that, Leckler needs to have some consideration as well. And when you're looking at Leckler versus Landetta, I think Leckler has the edge in that one. So to me, I would definitely want to see some special teamers move up, as well as McGinnis and Lorenzo Neal.
I've got
Yes.
one person that I would like to pound the table for a little bit,
Mhm.
and that would be Lomas Brown. Like, I know part of the challenge when you talk about somebody from that Detroit Lions offensive line is kind of the narrative that was really kind of false around Barry never had an offensive line in front of him. Barry never had decent blocking in front of him. Like, even when he did, a lot of times he circumvented it because he's Barry Sanders. He was generational. But Lomas Brown, you're thinking about a guy that for especially an extended period of time in the 90s, he was one of the elite left tackles in the National Football League. You're talking about a guy that played, I think, like 17, 18 years in the league, played at left tackle. I'm trying to think about guys that are underrepresented in the process, guys that were near the top of their position, but they didn't get the recognition for whatever reason. And when I think about Lomas Brown and his kind of like sustained high level play at a marquee position back when the league cared more about left tackle than they do right tackle, way more than they do now, let's say. I just think about Lomas Brown and I see there's a guy to me that I look compared to maybe some of the other offensive tackles that are up on the list. I struggle to see like what the differentiation is.
Yeah, Jeff, I happen to agree with you. As I showed you before, I actually had Lomas
Uh-oh. Well,
Brown ahead of reason why I chose. I know the main reason why I did that was because one, I didn't think that Lomas would have as much, recognition, but also two, I just felt like having Barry Sanders and being a massive reason as to why Sanders is viewed so highly, and the fact that he was also part of that Giants team that went to the Super Bowl and lost to the Ravens, and he was also in his final game ever won the Super Bowl as a member of the Buccaneers. So he went out a champion in the very, very end. And when I look at Lomas Brown, I see someone who is vastly underrated in his own city, where he is a broadcaster of as well. And, being a multi-time all-pro at his position at left tackle, and as well as I think he was like all NFC like 6 or 7 times. Like the man was absolutely dominant in his position. I believe he deserves way more recognition than he
Can
does.
somebody fact check me here? Thank you, Vinny. I'm trying to remember. Do we remember the exact year? Was it 1994, 95 that the Pro Bowl started including like fan vote?
It was 1994, I believe, or 1995, one of those two.
So I'm
And-
even trying to think like when it was a little less of a
1991,
popularity.
1993. So the first 4 years of Richmond Webb's career was not. So 1991, 1993. So 94 was the first.
Okay. I'm just trying to think like even before it started becoming a fan vote, Lomas Brown was already a multiple time Pro Bowler at that point. And I'm trying to think through like when players and coaches were giving all the weight to that process, like the peers at the time were indicating that this was an elite player at the position year after year. So they were cutting through kind of some of the media narrative around Barry didn't have anybody in front of him, didn't have any help on the offensive line.
Okay.
Jack, you look like you got something profound to say. I can't wait.
No, nothing profound. I was just going to confirm what you had just said. His first Pro Bowl was in 1990, so same track as Webb.
Yeah.
7 straight. He was All Pro second team in 91. Barry's first year
89
was
too.
89. Barry's first year was 89. So
That's
Barry
cool.
was running behind him starting in 89. But I mean, the Pro Bowl version of him starting in 1990.
And like basically that next like 6 or next 7 season stretch.
Okay, so we've got 4 people that we sort of feel a little bit passionate about. But at some point, people have to get eliminated.
The only one that I would push for would be may I mention my piece on Leckler while I have him back here? Or
Yeah, go ahead. Please.
okay. Now, as we know, just recently, the legendary Ray Guy fortunately passed away. Very, very sad situation. But many people would argue that he is the greatest punter of all time. And I would agree with the statement for most of his life until Mr. Shane Leckler over here was taken by the same team that drafted Ray Guy back in the 70s in 2000. Now, when I think of Shane Leckler, I think of the GOAT of punters. Yes, even above Ray Guy, I view Shane Leckler as the greatest punter of all time. When you look at his statistics, member of 2 all-decade teams in 2000 and in the 2010s, and along with Ray Guy, he was the only 2 punters selected the NFL's 100th anniversary team. He was also a 4-time punting yards leader in 03, 08, 09, and 2017, member of 7 Pro Bowl teams, as well as 9 All-Pros, 6 of them being first team. And on top of that, in terms of every punter throughout NFL history, he has the highest career average yard per punt with 47.6 yards, which is unbelievable as a punter.
Hey, Vinny.
Everyone that's associated with punter views him as one of, if not the greatest punter of all time. Pat McAfee on his own show said, I'm on this list and that's fine, but vote for Shane Leckler. He is the GOAT. He is the GOAT of my position. And Pro Football Reference agrees with me as well. If you look at their Hall of Fame monitor, Ray Guy is 52.33. Shane Leckler is above that, 63.68. So Shane Leckler, if you're going to view him, like same thing that you said, Jack, like the best at his position, I would argue Shane Leckler is the best to ever play his position. So, and if we're going to,
the only all great points. I think everybody probably agrees that Shane Leckler has an incredible case. I bet there are a lot of people here who would support him. The reason I didn't vote for him here is because it's his first year. We're not going to put him in his first year. There are a lot of people to talk about. We're going to have to get into a situation where we're talking about, year 25 for Lewis and Pat Swilling. My feeling is totally agree with you, and as long as you don't put another punter out ahead of him, although Reggie really would up, but as long as you don't do that, he's still at the top of the queue, and you can kind of get to him when he's a little bit later. Like Lorenzo Neal's in his 10th year, Webb is in 15, 16, Ruben Brown is up in there, and there are a number of
There's
guys who are
quite a
up-
few to, yeah.
up
to-
over 10.
No worries.
Yeah.
No worries. It's fine.
Yeah.
So that would be my only point. I agree with you, and I'll support that for sure.
I think a lot of us, and maybe I'm just speaking for myself, Leckler, I didn't have him on mine only because a lot of to what Jack just said, but I mean, it's the Pro Football Hall of Fame. There's just so much talent on this list. It's like in my 25 to 30, and I agree with everything, Vinny, that you just said. I really do.
100%.
It's a tough thing because eliminating people are so hard. It's just so hard, but that's what we've got to do right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, we gotta
So
move.
we've got to like put through. So I said initially that we're going to put 3 of these people through. We've made cases for 4.
You know, I'll be the one that says, you know, I love Shane Leckler and all, but considering it's his first year of eligibility, you can take him off. No worries.
I mean, it's the same thing. I see
I'm
with-
with- I'm with-
it's
I'm
the
with
same
you
thing
on
I
that
see with
too,
Robert
Danny.
Mathis, who's another sure thing, but it's kind of like, I don't know. I don't need to talk about Robert Mathis in his first year.
All right, so we're going to advance just them 2, or sorry, the 3: Lomas, McGinnis, and
Neil.
Neil. Okay. All right, so let's just do that.
I would make a case for Priest Holmes, but we'll move on.
Oh,
There's God, there's just so much. It's harder and
mean,
harder.
I thought about trying to make a case for Laurie Glover and I thought to myself, why? So we can move on.
Man. Moving on.
I know.
Yeah, we can definitely move on. I want to make a case for Corey Long, not Corey Long, but Corey Dillon. I have like a lot to say on Corey Dillon because I think his, you know, we don't talk about Corey Dillon enough
No, we don't.
because because I feel like when I look at this list, you look at Corey Dillon, and Corey Dillon was a low, just like the lone spot for those 90s Bengals teams. The Bengals was just terrible.
The Bungles.
And you look at the Bungles, and you look at the, you know, when I did my ballot, I'm like, I'm going by Pro Bowlers. How many times did you make it to a Pro Bowl? How many times did you do this? Went to the Pro Bowl 4 times. He has over 10,000 yards, 82 rushing touchdowns. Had the single game record for the rookie single game rushing record on December 4th, 1997. Did that against the Oilers. He checks out all the boxes in terms of, you know, in terms of being a Hall of Famer. The thing about it is, you know, he only led the league in rushing. He had a career high of 1,635 yards in 2004, the year that the Patriots won the Super Bowl. I would say, I think he is a Hall of Famer because he was such a bright spot on those bad Cincinnati teams. But at the same token, I just don't think, you know, he doesn't move the needle. I don't think he will move the needle for a lot of voters in Canton.
Well, but here would be one question I would have about Corey Dillon. I'm trying to think through like some of the other backs that were on the list. Does this mean that Sean Alexander had more votes than Corey Dillon?
That would be correct. Yes.
Yes.
Like that kind of like is interesting to me because I feel like Corey Dillon had more longevity in some worse situations, and when he got into a great situation, he had a monster year in 2004. Like, keep me honest, there, it was a pretty monster year. I was trying to think through some of the other running backs, and it feels awkward. Like Fred Taylor.
Fred Taylor was on there. Fred Taylor he was one of the people that I voted. Taylor was one of them. Alexander as well.
I'm just thinking, like, if I was thinking about real differentiation there, like I'd struggle a little bit to see the differentiation like of those other two compared to a Corey Dillon.
100 touchdowns and an MVP. But we'll get there.
I would say when it comes to Corey Dillon, you're in luck, Ryan, because after Willie Anderson, I've been speaking to a lot of people that are associated with the Bengals. The one they're going to be pushing for next when it comes to the modern era would actually be Corey Dillon, because behind the scenes, he's the one that has the next momentum after Anderson.
All right.
So
As official timekeeper,
Well, at least
This
they'll have verifiable stats to use for Corey Dillon. That would be an improvement.
okay, which one? Yes, I love our chat group. It's great. Okay,
you.
same rule, guys. So this is tier 7. This is the people who got 3 votes, and we're just going to. So when you think of Lomas Brown, Willie McGinnis, and Lorenzo Neal, would you replace them with any of these people? We have Gary Anderson, who was discussed a little bit earlier, and we were talking about running backs. So we've got Tiki Barber and Eddie George, Nick Mangold, Tim McDonald, Brian Mitchell, Nate Newton, former semifinalist, not from us, I believe, but Simeon Rice and Rod Smith.
I would like to pound the table for Tim McDonald.
Please.
Yeah, I'm trying to put this the best way I feel like I could. He was a 6-time Pro Bowler. He did eventually win a Super Bowl with the 49ers on that 94 team. I think he had the unfortunate task of playing the first half of his career with the originally St. Louis and then later Phoenix Cardinals. So even before they were the Arizona Cardinals, you're talking about a top flight safety in his era, and feels like he never really got the due that he deserved. I'm thinking about a guy, I believe this is his next to last year of eligibility. Even as a strong safety, 40 interceptions in 13 seasons is not a bad number considering the responsibilities that he had. He was even led the league, I believe, one season in forced fumbles. When you think about him, I know there's a lot of attention paid to Dion, and when Dion got brought into 94, that put the 49ers over the hump. Well, he wasn't the only piece that was added to that 49ers defense. Tim McDonald was, and he also had a Pro Bowl year that year. And, I think about it and I say, compared to, let's say, a Darren Woodson, if a Tim McDonald played on the Dallas Cowboys, would he have been in the Hall of Fame 5 to 7 years ago? Maybe, maybe not, who knows? But I think Jack and I have had this conversation sometimes about McDonald and Darren Woodson. And that's the piece I struggle with is Tim McDonald not the same level as the other safeties, or is he a victim of the circumstance and situation similar to maybe an Albert Lewis, and he just kind of falls by the wayside and goes underneath the radar when I really feel like he should?
Wow.
Can I? Go
Speechless.
ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Can I just talk a little bit about Rod Smith?
Please.
I'm not going to pound the table for him, but I am going to say this. When I think about Hall of Fame, was that player ever the best at his position? Regardless of voting, I mean, you've heard me talk about voting awards, and I'll talk about that when it comes to Tom Nalen. But I'm talking about in 2000, 2001, you could argue Rod Smith was the best wide receiver in the NFL. When you're going up against Terrell Owens, you got Randy Moss then, you've got Torrey Holt, you've got excellent wide receivers. But for those 2 years, he could be argued that he was the best wide receiver in the game. And, one interesting fact is he, in 2000, he had 16.
On what basis would you got to do a little bit more? And I know you can. On what basis would you say that Rod Smith, after all those guys you just named, who are all in their prime,
yep,
on what basis would you say, and you watch him every week, that Rod Smith has a case to be made for the best receiver in the NFL in those 2 seasons?
Well, you look at the stats. He led the league in receiving 1 year with 113 receptions, averaged over 100 receptions for those 2 years, averaged over about 1,500 yards per year, 100 yards per game one of those years, 16 yards per touch, led the league. I mean, those stats aren't easy to come by in a run-first offense with not an incredibly great quarterback with Brian Griese at the helm. You take those into consideration. He was a dynamic receiver that got very little credit. And if you compare those 2 years to those people I just talked about, he was at the top of those 2 years in many of those categories. So that's why I think you could argue that he could argue as the greatest receiver for those 2 years, because of those factors. Not only, I mean, you got Torrey Holt, who was in the Greatest Show on Turf, and they're throwing the ball all the time, and they weren't throwing the ball all the time with the Broncos. It was a run first offense, and that's how it started. That's the only thing I have to say. I mean, I'm not
I
gonna
appreciate
cry
you
if
breaking it. I appreciate you breaking it down. That's
Sure.
all I wanted to hear.
I'm not going to cry if he doesn't make it past the thing, but I just want, that's how I think about, when you talk about someone should be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. If they have career stats, but were never once considered the best at their position in any year, why are we even talking about him? That player just happened to stay in the league for a long time, right? So Rod Smith, that's
Sort of
the
like
only
a Eddie
reason I
Ken,
picked
sort of like a Eddie Kennison. Like Eddie Kennison's just stayed in the league like 13 years, and he had a great career, but he was just never like that dude that was like the top of, like a top 5 or top 10 receiver. I have to agree with you about Rod Smith because you think about the play, after Elway left, it became a run first offense. And you just look at just how like that during that time, 2000, 2001, you had guys like Marvin Harrison, you had guys like Randy Moss, Rod Smith, Jimmy Smith. It was still a run heavy offensive league. But as time went on, you could start seeing that they were starting to evolve more into a pass first league. And you had Torrey Holt and Isaac Bruce in St. Louis. But at the end of the day, you could make an argument he was a top 5 receiver. I remember a lot of times watching Bronco games, just seeing him, just the catches that he would make, it was just amazing to watch.
And I think, Tom, like I look at him and I say, like, it's a similar battle for me with McGinnis in terms of, do I think he was somewhat underrated? Yes. Do I know that underrated necessarily equals like Hall of Fame? Because I come back to McDonald and I say, McDonald was a 6-time Pro Bowler, 4-time All-Pro second team. Rod Smith doesn't have those same accolades. So if we're comparing, like, I know different positions, different responsibilities, but if we're saying relative to like their peers, relative to the position, I would look at Tim McDonald being higher on the list. And I would struggle like to say, where's the differentiation again with like a Rod Smith versus a Jimmy Smith, let's say.
Yeah, well, let me jump in here real quick on Rod Smith. And I obviously have a little Denver orange bias, but I mean, arguably, he could have been Super Bowl MVP of Super Bowl 33. That was John Elway's last hurrah. And, it was a nice career parting gift. And Elway played a great game against the Falcons. If you remember, Smith is the one who broke that game wide open with that long pass against Eugene Robinson. And the other thing too, and Thomas has made this point before regarding Rod Smith, he was an undrafted free agent. This is a guy who was started out as a quarterback at Missouri Southern. Okay. And so he undrafted free agent. In fact, his first catch, winning touchdown pass against the Washington. But the thing is with Rod, his stats are impeded because he had a scratch to make the team as a UDFA.
Right.
And so it wasn't until a couple of years they trusted him. And that's when he started to get the big stats in the Super Bowl, the Broncos Super Bowl run. And then after Elway retired.
Would he have
and I
8?
agree with that. Like what you said there is if he'd have been drafted, he would have had the opportunity to do more sooner. And his career stats probably would have got him in the Hall of Fame by now. If he would have started out, early on, but like you said, it took him 3 full years before he could even really start to, earn playing time. So,
well, he did have 8,000. I think he had like 8 seasons of 1,000 yards or more receiving. I think part of the challenge for Rod Smith is, Thomas, you brought up some of the other names, like the competition at the position at the time. That's where I struggle a little bit.
And even coming up.
And most of them are, a lot of them are first ballot Hall of Famers. You got Randy Moss, first ballot Hall of Fame. I'm not arguing that Rod Smith was better than them for their entire career, but for 2 seasons, he had that type of competition, and you could still argue that he was as good as those people, is what I'm saying. I don't want to waste a bunch of time arguing about Rod Smith. I'm just pointing that out, that's how I view Rod Smith. I don't look at his career stats as much because of those reasons. I don't look at the All Pros and Pro Bowls as much because he had that competition for all those awards. But was he arguably the greatest for a couple of years? I would say yes. You guys don't have to agree. That's not a problem. But That's just my little spiel for Rod Smith, and I'm fine with him not moving forward. Just wanted to give a little shout out to him.
Okay, so
As a quick little bonus, he was a terrific downfield blocker also. I mean, all the receivers in that system were great blockers.
So do we have anyone here that we feel that passionate about to bring it to the thing of four? Because there's still a lot more names coming up.
Yes, 6 more tiers.
Yes.
Brian seconded McDonald.
There's someone that I on here that I also want to make a push for that I actually was a big voter push the guy that I voted hardly for personally. Brian Mitchell, that's another name speaking of special teamers.
Yeah.
When you think of Mitchell, he was very, very close along with Rick Upchurch for making it to the NFL's 100th anniversary team. And Joe Gibbs was afterwards saying how obviously biased with him being the coach of him, but when you look at his statistics, has the most amount of kickoff return yards as well as punt return yards and total return yards, and most ever for a non-wide receiver, only Jerry Rice having more. And he was also the second greatest return specialist in NFL history by the NFL Network. Also is considered one of the greatest in NFL history. And when he was at college in Louisiana, he wasn't playing running back or return specialist. He was the quarterback of the team.
Okay.
2,500 passing yards and over 800 rushing yards in a season.
Yeah.
That's correct. He had the most amount of yards in a single decade, which is still held up to this day with over 16,905 yards. And he has so many records as a return specialist.
So here's
Is he like a Frank Gore of returners though? Like, was he a compiler versus like truly dominant or
we
elite?
already have the dominant one.
He had about 2 or 3 years. He was pretty dominant also, Jeff.
Well,
He
no,
was
I'm trying to
very
think about
dominant.
like him relative to like a Mel Gray. That's what I'm trying to think through is like,
Was he
No.
dominant or was he a game changer like Hester is?
Oh no, Mitchell was a game changer. Mitchell was definitely a game changer. He was one of the 4 finalists for the NFL 100th anniversary team. The only 2 that missed it, other than Rick Upchurch, Devin Hester, and Billy White Shoes Johnson made it. Mitchell was very, very close.
So
Miners-
for the interest of time, so here's what we're gonna do. Everyone Vinny, you're the youngest, so you're probably the one who can count the best. So there we go. I've named you. You've got Evan's role.
ratted
Everyone
us
put
out. You ratted us out as the old guys.
There's
we're
that.
mostly all old, Dave. We are magnificent. We're in the peak of our life.
I
Very-
kept my hair. Things have done well for me. That's all
I got
I
most of it.
Yeah, in a bag.
Aaron McCann, GLH.
Right. Anyway, so everyone just put in the 2 people that you put through in this group.
Just wanted it in the chat.
Put in the chat. Vinny, count
Does it
them
have
up.
to be 2?
Doesn't have to be 2.
If
Okay,
it's just one, it's just one. Or
2 just from tier 7, or are we including Brown, McGinnis, and Neal as well?
They're part
Those-
of that tier now too.
Okay, they're part of that tier now too. Got it.
Jeff has McDonald and Lorenzo Neal. Okay, so that's 1 for each of them. Tim McDonald and Luke Mangold.
Yeah, and so then we're just gonna put those 3 into the next one. And should we go to the top part after? Just to mix things up.
Okay. Dave, you only have Lomas Brown as the only choice.
Yeah, the rest,
That's
I
okay.
didn't vote for any of these guys in my 25, so
But
Lomas was on my edge.
I need to have 2.
No, you don't. No, he doesn't.
No, you don't.
Oh, you don't?
You
Okay.
can, you can do 1, you can do 0, I guess, but 2 is the most.
And while we're doing that, I'm going to just plug something else that we're working on. Paul, you and I, we've been talking about doing another podcast together, and all of you are going to be special guests at various points. We are going to be doing pretty much a lot of the classic football games, and just look at that. So Paul and I are in the infancy of that. So I hope you don't mind me sort of bringing that out here. So we will be reaching out to all of you individually to see who might be sort of the right fit for that. Sound good?
Yes.
Awesome.
I'm assuming you're starting off, Paul, with like from the 1985 season when the Bears went down to Cowboy Stadium. That sounds like a good time.
No, we're gonna actually set the bar
Texas Stadium.
really high. Should we tell him, Kirk?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
We're going with the ice bowl.
Yeah, there you go.
Ooh, nice. That very nice.
Is it,
So
did
that's
you,
the standard. If you want to get into this in terms of a historical game, you're gonna have to pull out a
then we're-
major one. And
We're gonna
Yeah.
go chronologically after, so that's about as far back as we're gonna go.
I
Then
would like to do with Paul with I would like to do the Thanksgiving game 2004, Drew Henson versus Craig Krenzel. let the world suffer.
Well, I have made some people suffer in my classic sports review with other things, but yes.
Let me know when you're ready to do the immaculate reception game. I'm loaded and ready to go do that at any moment.
Absolutely. All right. So look for that into the, and I gotta do this because it's part of my thing now, the Bucknerverse.
You heard out, Marvel.
And
and
it gets
DC.
through Buckner.
plus,
Soon.
for a bonus,
And
we're
just
gonna
like-
wait till it's cold enough and there's snow on the ground, and we're gonna film this outside.
There you
Oh,
I live in Winnipeg. No, we're not.
go. But that makes it perfect. That makes it better.
Oh,
yeah, maybe you can get Chris Jericho to come make a cameo in your video.
You know,
He's
I think
from
Bob
Winnipeg, too.
Skoronsky has a grandson who's going to be in the next draft, the kid from Northwestern.
Yeah, Peter Skoronsky. Is Vinny still counting? Is he
I'm
using
still
like
counting.
Yes, he
he's
is.
using
He had to take his
common
shoes
core
off.
math? Taking the young buck longer without the calculator.
I'm saying this as someone who both of my parents are teachers, so I would say
hey, less
Just-
talking, more counting.
That's what
already
we're
finished.
saying.
I already finished counting.
Okay. Okay, so
McDonald and Neil have the most with 4 and 3. The rest have either 2 or 1.
so
There we
McDonald.
go.
No, no.
Got a late
that's-
Rod
hold
Smith
on,
vote in there.
Hold on. No.
I see at least 4 Lomas Browns.
Yeah, no. There's 6 for McDonald.
You see 4 Lomas Browns? Okay, 1.
There's
See
5
McDonald
for,
Lomas, I
there's-
see Rod.
Vinny,
Smith,
you had
Lomas
one
Browns.
job.
Vinny, what fucking type of New Jersey math is this
I
shit?
see
Your New York
McDonald,
card's been
Lorenzo, and I voted
revoked.
for Lomas.
guys, it's
Oh,
this,
I'm
typing
seeing
it out.
more. Okay, so
All
right now,
votes count, Vinny. All votes count. These are all
Stop
legal
the-
votes. Count 'em
stop
all.
the count. Okay, Jack's helping me out. McDonald has the most votes with 6, and
All right.
Lorenzo Neal and Lomas Brown are tied with 5. Should we break the tie or should we just go with
Now we'll
it?
put them all
Just
through.
move 'em.
Who we got? So it's McDonald, Lomas, Smith, Neil.
No, it's this. It is McDonald with 6, Lomas Brown and Lorenzo with 5 apiece. Rod Smith has 3.
Oh, so it's just Tim
Yeah.
McDonald, Lomas Brown, and Lorenzo Neal.
It's yeah, it's Tim McDonald, Lomas Brown, and Lorenzo.
Okay.
Move 3 through.
All right. Tier 6. And this one I counted the 5s and the 4s.
Drum roll.
Okay.
So then Tim McDonald automatically advances to the next round because he got more votes than anybody. I'm kidding.
Not how it works.
All righty.
Oh, Peanut Harrison. Oh, this is gonna get good.
So we got, that's sort of why we needed to eliminate some people. So we got Anquan Bolden, who I was surprised only with 5 votes. Ben Coates with 5. Rodney Harrison with 5. Logan Mankins, I thought he'd do better with 5. Red Taylor at 5. John Abraham at 4. London Fletcher at 4. Neil Smith at 4. And Peanut Tillman at 4. Who is someone who, again, through the power of conversation, we put him through as a semi ourselves. But again, four votes is better than he did before when we got him through. Tim McDonald, then Brown and Neal advance.
Yeah,
And to
So-
talk
Tougher and
about
tougher.
Ben Coates.
I'll
Is Jack
I'll
gonna go
start.
with Tillman?
Yeah, I'll start here. No, a few things stand out. One is that I personally don't see, I'll start with something positive. I don't want to do that. Ben Coates helped define his position. It was Shannon Sharp, number 1, and then it was Ben Coates and Keith Jackson tied, flip a coin between the two of them. Ben Coates had a 1,000-yard season. He was the tight end on one Super Bowl runner-up and then one winner where he was the number 2 tight end behind Shannon Sharp. Just someone who, when you thought of the position in your head at, for a 5, 6, 7 year stretch, Ben Coates was one of the first 2 names to come up. And I think that's pretty important. I also think, again, he is someone who's later in his time. I look at, on the flip side, I don't get the Fred Taylor thing, quite honestly. And I think that there are a number of other running backs. This is something that Paul's talked a lot about the problem that you're going to have trying to sort out the 2000s guys. Some of it is just a feel. Hey, man, all respect to running backs. I don't get the Fred Taylor thing when you're putting him ahead of Sean Alexander, who won an MVP and had, an 1,800-yard
Corey Dillon
season. Even Corey Dillon, Eddie George, who had that huge run of 1,000 yards, grinding out those games in Tennessee. Marshawn Lynch. There's going to be a number of them. I don't get it. I also think it's a premature, and I was really stunned that the committee put Anquan Bolden into that semifinals list, which puts him on track to be in based on first-year semifinalists. I think it was, I don't want to look it up. I think it was like in the first 9 years, maybe first 11, but you're basically in once you're a first-year semifinalist. To make that acclamation on him and Steve Smith, who are 2 of my absolute favorite, just fucking rock solid, do it all. There's a lot like Rod Smith in a way. I feel like a similar approach to the game, but gosh, that feels very premature to me to already be talking about Anquan Bolden when we talked about how many receivers there are and a spread of positions. That's what stands out to me on this.
Anquan Bolden is like 14th all time in receiving yards. I mean, there's only a few guys.
Listen, all these guys who we're talking about did some things, man. Or we wouldn't be talking about them. Within the category of you were dope. It feels like he's
go back to the whole thing about
up ahead.
Yeah, I mean, not to say that he was strictly a compiler, but he wasn't a guy that he wasn't a game breaker, obviously, right? I mean, that wasn't the guy he was. He was a possession receiver and a tough guy. He
face breaker.
He was 232 pounds and tough as hell, and essentially almost like a mini tight end. And I watched the kid at Pokey, back when he was a quarterback in high school. I loved his game, but we're talking about Hall of Fame, right? I mean, he's a tough guy, and he deserves to be in the Hall of really damn good. But there's a demarcation when I think about the fact that like guys like Harold Jackson aren't in the Hall of Fame, right?
Oh yeah, I'm very big with that one.
I mean, I just can't see pushing Anquan Bolden forward.
How can we talk about Neil Smith for a moment?
Please,
Yes, thank you.
Yes, because when I think about Neil Smith, and this is maybe even we'll get some Broncos love here for an old Chiefs guy. But when we think about Neil Smith, this was a guy that we think about was one of the preeminent defensive ends in the 1990s.
Yep.
And that's the Jack talks a lot about, I think, the eyeball test, and the eyeball test is there. I even think about when he was signed in free agency to Denver in 1997, he was a key cog in those defensive units, even if his sack numbers had declined maybe versus his peak in the mid 90s in Kansas City. He led the league in sacks once. I think he was like a 5-6 time Pro Bowler. 2 times he was like top 3, top 5 in defensive player of the year. Like when I start thinking about guys and we start splitting hairs on some of these dudes, and I try to point to like maybe who had the highest peak and how long did that peak stretch? Like I felt like there was a several year stretch where Neil Smith was, the better player overall personally than Derek Thomas. As much as I love DT, always will. Like when I look at that defense and I say from an all around standpoint, he was that dude every bit as much as a Derek Thomas was. And I think in terms of as an all-around player, even more so. Like he was the dude. He had, some big numbers there in the middle 90s. And it just always feels odd to me that he hasn't moved more in the process. It's like he's kind of gotten forgotten.
Yeah.
He's got over 100 sacks in his career, all-decade team for the 90s.
Right.
Sacks, led the league in forced fumbles once.
Yep.
He's coming up on a couple more times through the voting list here. I think his time is 2 more years after this. So
has he even been a semi-finalist? I can't recall.
No.
I think he has been like once. I
Once a semi-finalist. Yeah.
No.
Never has been.
Not on Jack's list. He's never been a semifinalist. Not that I can recall you calling out Jack.
Yeah, because Neil's one of the people that I voted for. So like I was a little surprised he only got the 4. I want to Dan, can you talk about Logan Mankins? I'm a big fan of his.
Yeah, I think a couple of other just very quick points. Anquan Bolden, I think I ran into this problem last year too, is we have such a backlog at wide receiver at this point, in my opinion, that when you get to a certain amount of guys that you're trying to narrow it down to, you need to think like, is he even one of the top 5 wide receivers on the ballot? And I wasn't sure that he was. I think I ended up voting for 4 wide receivers, but so to me, a lot of the guys we've discussed so far are not in. Ben Coates to me definitely would be, and I'd be huge on Ben Coates. And as far as Logan Mankins is concerned, one compliment that he got from Belichick was that he's the best offensive lineman he ever coached. And I was ready to present that as a mind-blowing comment, but it looks like Belichick's never coached a Hall of Famer. So slightly less impressive. But Mankins also has the misfortune of his entire Patriots career was starting the year after they won the 3rd Super Bowl and ending the year before they won the 4th one. So he is the greatest Patriot of the last 25 years to not win a Super Bowl. He was an all decades team, 7-time Pro Bowler, 1-time All Pro. He was just dominant. And also, if the tackle got injured, he kicked out to tackle. So he could play either side of the line, guard or tackle. Obviously, he was a left guard for the most part, but just dominant in the run game, dominant in the pass game. He was mean, and he could single block anybody, and he could pull. So he just did everything very well. And he was one of the few people Belichick ever actually paid what they were worth to keep him around, which says a lot about him. He was just one of those irreplaceable guys. Just being perfectly honest, I think the interior line specifically, offensive line in general, but interior line is stacked right now with the backlog of people. So whether it's Logan Mankins or one of these other guys, some of these offensive linemen and wide receivers need to get in. And I was surprised. I know Baselli got in last year, but we have some, in my mind, incredible guards that still haven't even been talked about. But I'd put Mankins up there with any of them, honestly.
Ken, is there someone on this list that you want to take a look at?
I mean, I think 2 of the names that were brought up already, you got Ben Coates and you got Neil Smith. I mean, of this list, those are probably the 2 that I would look at. I mean, when I'm looking at, some of these lists, I also want to think about who are the ones that truly have the potential of making it, whether it's to the final 25 or even past that. And I'm looking at everybody else on the list, and I'm not seeing anyone that I would put in the top 25. So to me, Coates and Smith are the ones that I would vote to move through. Then I would probably look at Lorenzo Neal as well, possibly Brown. But the thing with that is, as was just brought up, there are plenty of other offensive linemen out there that I would probably vote for ahead of Brown. So
can you talk about why you would back like Coates and Smith? Because I know some of us have talked about them too, Ken, but can you talk a little bit like why they stand out to you compared to others?
I mean, I think you hit it on the head, Jeff, when it came to Neal, as far as the eye test is concerned, because you've got a lot of people that can rack up stats, and you look at sacks, you look at tackles, you look at all that kind of stuff. But there's a lot of intangibles that you have, especially when you're looking at some of the linemen, whether it's defensive line and especially offensive line. There's so many intangibles that you have to look at when it comes to these players that that eye test is really important. And like you said it perfectly, as far as Neil Smith, he has that eye test. He passes that. So I would put him in, and for the exact same reason that Jack was talking about Ben Coates.
Yep.
I mean, when you have somebody who defines a position like that, I mean, you've got a handful of people that you think of. Tight end, what are the names that come to mind? And he's one of those names that comes to mind. So as far as I'm concerned, those are the two that I would put in, and then probably Lorenzo Neal. So of this whole list, those would be the three that I would pick.
If we can,
Sorry, Kirk. I was just gonna add one last thing. I will say, out of the three Patriots on this list, and I did vote for mostly non-Patriots, but out of the three Patriots on this list, I would honestly probably put Mankins third just because of the backlog at offensive line. I think Coates, just because of where he ranks all time in his position, would be the clear number one to me. And at the 96 Super Bowl versus the Packers, where they do the giant image of one guy from each team outside the stadium, it was Brett Favre and Ben Coates. Like he was their signature player at that point.
Even over Bledsoe, which is like that's a good point. Like he was over Bledsoe, who was the dude at the time.
Right. They had Bledsoe, they had Curtis Martin, and they had full-size Ben Coates outside.
Ty Law was Ty Law with that team at that time?
Not yet.
Malloy was, McGinnis was.
Malloy and Brewski and McGinnis were there, but Law hadn't joined yet.
I wonder how that Brett Favre statue in Mississippi is coming along right now. But anyway,
once they get more welfare money, they can divert.
But I will say the only other comment I'll make about Patriots for now, until we get to Vince Wilfork, is the one guy that I will say all pros and those statistics I don't think justify is Rodney Harrison, because everybody hated him. He was always considered the dirtiest player, always the least liked person in the league. There was one year he didn't make the Pro Bowl and was first team All Pro. Mm-hmm. So it just became like, okay, we get it. Everyone hates Rodney Harrison, and I hated him before he came to New England. So I'm well aware of what a jerk he was, how he'd pretend to help guys up and try to dislocate their arms. And, but he was a stud. Like the reason Lawyer Malloy is forgotten, like my nephews have no idea who Lawyer Malloy is, because Rodney Harrison was better. He followed him and was significantly better. And Lawyer Malloy was a stud. He was one of my favorite players. To me, Rodney Harrison, I think I mentioned this last year, the only two guys in NFL history with 30 sacks and 30 interceptions are Ray Lewis and Rodney Harrison. So I'm a huge fan of Rodney Harrison's skill as a football player and what he meant to two Super Bowl champions.
I think the last thing though I want to hear within this round, if we could, for anyone who's joining us for the first time, last year, Jack, and I'm putting you on the spot here because you did a great push for Peanut Tillman. And for people who haven't heard it, if you can just sort of like do that again, if you don't mind, because you made a believer out of quite a few of us, I think.
You talked me into him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Brian's got a great comment here in the chat. He says, I would support Tillman over Brown being Williams Brown. He says the punches will get the airtime, but I think that his pure coverage was stellar, and he succeeded in zoner man in an incredibly difficult era to play defensive back. Yeah, that's all very true. The punch does get the airtime, and I think it's warranted. As I've said, Charles is in an unusual position in which his case actually grows in significance and stature after his career at a higher clip than it did during it, because we watch the game, we watch NFL games, we watch college games, and Charles Tillman is mentioned by name, referenced every weekend now, because someone forces a fumble, and not just because they did it a little bit like him, but because they were studying his tape. The coach has brought in his tape. He came in to talk to the team. That is pretty significant. The number itself is extraordinary. He is tied for the most forced fumbles in the season. He's tied with two pass rushing defensive. He's tied with two edge guys who have that advantage of hitting the quarterback when they're not looking or when they have pressure coming up the middle or any of the cases, when you're able to annihilate a quarterback, you have a lot more shots. Charles was forcing those fumbles. I mean, you know what it looks like. And the whole purpose of the way that he devised it is that so he was always, it was something that a lot of other Bears defenders, not a lot, but some Bears defenders started to miss, is that the way that Charles executed the punch, it was done in a way that the fallback was a tackle. So he had a full body there and he was able to punch and sort of lead that into a tackle so that he wasn't, oh, if you miss, that's it, that's your shot, the guy's gone. 44 forced fumbles, he was behind, again, when we talk about defensive ends, he was behind only Robert Max in his time for forced fumbles. And then you add on to that the coverage, the guys who he was defending, Randy Moss, Marvin Harrison, Plaxico, T.O. Obviously, we know what he did with Calvin Johnson. The year that Calvin Johnson set the new NFL record for receiving yards, his worst game was against Charles Tillman and the Bears, 3 catches, 34 yards, no scores. So it's a pretty remarkable resume that oddly enough gets stronger as the years go on.
If I could say 2 things about Peanut being the other like big Bears fan here, I think of 2 things. One is you got some guys that are so unique, like a Barry Sanders, let's say, that nobody could ever imitate them. Nobody could ever duplicate them. And then you've got guys that literally changed the league. Everybody, all 32 teams, every defensive coach teaches some iteration of the peanut punch. They're teaching this in college. They're teaching this in high school. Like, that's not just like one fluke thing. Like, this is literally fundamentally changing the way defense was played. And that was him. I think about that first. And second, is something, Jack, you and I have talked about that, kind of put out here, is I think about Peanut Tillman. He falls victim to the fact that he didn't play on a team that won a Super Bowl like a Rondé Barber. And when I think about Peanut Tillman, I say, if the Bears had won that 06 Super Bowl, he probably gets another 3 or 4 Pro Bowls, 1 or 2 more like first team all pros. And we might not even have to be having this conversation about whether he should even be in the top 25. We'd be talking about whether he's already in Canton or about to be in Canton. So I think about the way he changed the game and like how other factors that weren't really in his control, even had a peanut punch in the Super Bowl, just saying like he did his part. He matched up well against big time receivers. Go back to his rookie year against Randy Moss. Like, he mossed Moss. How many people actually mossed Moss in their career?
Can't think
Like,
of
just,
many.
right. Like that's what I think about, to like just add on to what Jack's talking about with Peanut.
Okay, I'm putting this back out here. So we're going to be voting for 3 to advance through. You can vote as many up to 3. And while we're doing that, I'm going to promote something else, because why the hell not? Hey, I got another show. It's a great show where we look at this crap was on national television. Hey, if you're a fan of Manimal, I have the show for you, where we looked at Manimal, the pilot. Anyone here remember Manimal?
I do remember Manimal.
Yes.
That show was awesome.
That show was awful.
No, you turned into an animal like instantly.
I remember.
It was so clutch.
I remember that Sony Pictures Animation once trying to make a movie of Manimal, but it never got off the ground for obvious reasons.
Maybe they watched that damn TV show episode. Well, you can find that on This Crap Was on National Television. And maybe one of you want to guest star on the next time we do this, because we're looking at Battle of the Network Stars episode 12.
Well, they decided to make the emoji.
I'm
movie
willing to
instead.
come on if you guys ever get to the San Pedro Beach Bums.
What's that?
Oh my God. It was the most amazing show. They were volunteer firefighters and a semi-pro football team. If you haven't seen it, why haven't you?
Wow, that sounds interesting.
Basically sounds like Hard Knocks, but way cooler.
Yeah. Hey, Kurt.
Yeah.
I when you said Manimal, I didn't know you were a big Kenneth Fareed fan.
I'm not. It just looked like a really bad TV show. So we just look at bad television.
No, I'm making a joke. The NBA player Kenneth Fareed.
Kenneth Fareed,
sorry.
Manimal.
Yeah, Battle of the Network Stars, episode 12. Like, look at this. I got to bring up this line up here. Crap.
Bum, bum, bum.
Oh, here we go. Yeah, Scott Baio's on that one.
Oh, yeah, he's kind of gone down the rabbit hole, let's just say.
We went down many rabbit holes. He was pretty much the gateway to young Hollywood. See what I did there? Team.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
That can go a lot of ways.
It did go a lot of ways.
Yes, it did.
Right.
Featuring team captain William Shatner for representing ABC with TJ Hooker. I mean, like, how can this be a bad show? It's going to be awesome. So check that out. I should do
Is
this.
anybody counting?
I am.
Yeah, because you don't want me to promote something else.
No, I'm making sure that Vinny's not the one counting because he did such a bang up job with it the last go round.
Yeah, I didn't do the best job last time, but it's fine. It's fine.
What type of math are they teaching you at Hofstra, dude? Come on now.
Listen, I graduated first off, and
He said I
my
was a
math-
journalism student. We don't do math.
we didn't really do much math, to be fair. Instead, we focused on trying to get the news out first as opposed to write. I'm not joking. That was actually one of the things they told us to do.
Oh shit, that's the media, sir.
Right.
I know. I'm aware, but
It's
I don't
real.
play by those rules.
All right, so we put our 3 through.
Yeah, I put mine. Did you put yours in, Kirk?
Kirk, you only have 2?
Yep.
Okay. And who's
Kirk, will Ben Coates winning a Super
Oh,
Bowl in
Paul-
2000
Paul,
with the
your name's
Ravens change your
Patrick?
mind?
Yes. Well, I
Paul
love
Jenkins.
Coates, so I mean, like, I could have been my third. I just
Coach Menken's
he was my third person. I just thought I just picked the just 2 because I'm really more on Neil Smith, frankly.
Ryan vote. And
Remember
who's
some-
Mile High. We have a third Broncos fan.
Yeah.
Who's that? Show yourself.
Jack says, I demand it.
No, I didn't mean that. I just meant like
And this mother Canucker Kirk doesn't want to
Jack,
vote for 3.
I didn't put anybody through. So if you're looking for my vote, I
Yeah.
did not vote. for
Wow,
anybody.
you didn't even
Wow.
do
Just
Neil
voted
Smith?
for nobody, and you'll
Yeah,
like.
by the way, by the way, I voted. I voted. I put my 3 in as well.
Thomas's vote was kick rocks.
No, his vote was Mike Hunt. Remember Mike Hunt, Jeff?
oh,
He
you
said, he every vote he has right now is going towards Tom Nalen. He's pointing the center of the
Exactly.
Thomas
Saving
podium
up his
versus that's
chips.
Tom Nalen.
That's right. I don't want to, take away all my spiel on anybody
Hey, but
else.
think about this
It's
though.
Tom
You haven't
Nalen.
even we haven't even had to talk about him yet. So think about.
I know it's pretty amazing. Last time I had to like talk about him the first thing and convince you all, and now I'm only waiting here because I'm waiting for Tom
Matt-
Nalen. I'm like, come on.
You're gonna wait a little bit longer.
Oh man,
What,
This is what
I
happens
told you
when
you'd be
you're successful.
happy.
I'm happy.
Yeah.
I don't
He
have
said,
to say
I'm already
anything.
happy. You haven't even had to give a case for him yet.
Yeah,
and
I don't even have to
assemble now.
talk. I'm on. I'm happy about that.
I have a feeling
I
we
have
to
it all
work a lot
prepared.
harder
I've
in the
got-
next round.
I got my speech already and everything.
all right, I got it.
All right, so who's going through?
Yeah, so I don't think I'm missing anybody. It is Tillman, Neil Smith, and Coates. It's
Smith,
United-
Coates, and whom?
Tony.
United 8. Here, I'll type it here. Tillman,
Okay.
8.
Peanut. Peanut had 8.
Smith
Neil
with
Smith.
7.
Coates.
Coates with 6. And then you've got.
Okay, so we're going to go the other way here now. So we're down to, let's see, 10, 19, 25, 30, 38. There's 38 There's 38 players. We've already put in 8. So we have 17 spots for 30. So I'm going to give you now the tier 2. And these are going to be people, there's 5 in tier 2. And you're going to say like, I'm not feeling that I want to push them through.
Right. Now we're going negative, is what you're saying.
We're going next.
Oh,
I
please
guess
tell
so, yes.
please tell me one of them is in tier 2 because I want to blast. Yes, please.
I already know which one it is, and yes, it is.
Oh yeah, I'm fired up, ready to go.
All right.
Let's see
Santa
it.
Claus
The big
is-
reveal.
So we have 5 people in tier 2.
Only 5, okay.
Willie Anderson, 15 votes. Andre Johnson, 15 votes. Dwight Freeney, 14. Jared Allen, 13. And Randall Cunningham, 12.
Cunningham, nice.
Can I knock out the Willie Anderson so we can stop that momentum train?
Wait,
So
where
Jack
is
can
Sean
talk about
Alexander?
Randall Cunningham.
Or Sean Alexander, he's in his house. I don't know.
No. No, I meant like what tier is he on? Is he in tier 2?
We'll get there.
He's not in this tier.
You haven't
He's
heard him in this tier, Vinny. That's what he's trying to
Did
say.
you post the tier? I don't see it in the chat.
Oh,
need
sorry,
to-
tier 2.
Yeah.
Heard names.
I would
So
like to
these
go
are
ahead
the-
and
these
talk
are
about.
this is the group right below the ones we put in automatically.
Yeah,
yes.
And Randall Cunningham's in this list.
yes,
Oh my God. Okay.
And Donovan McNabb's in a different list.
yes.
So let's talk about Willie Anderson. When I look at Willie Anderson, I see a higher level right tackle, but he was a right tackle. And I don't care what some may say, he was a right tackle for a reason, because in that era of the NFL, even still, there was a premium placed on the left tackle position. The Bengals did not draft him 10th overall in 1996 to play right tackle. They started him off at left tackle. Granted, that was as an injury replacement, but the long-term thought was he's a better run blocker than he is a pass protector, so we're going to move him over to the right side. He had a really good career at right tackle. I'm not trying to say he didn't. But what really bothers me about Willie Anderson in his case is when you kind of look at the facts of what happened. Willie Anderson put out a stat of his own saying that he only gave up 16 sacks in 13 seasons without revealing his methodology, without revealing like what he's classifying as a sack allowed.
Then he helped him count it.
So
Then his offensive line coach chimed in and said that this is a valid stat. And I
They
think
did it
about-
together. They did
I'm
it
sorry?
together. They
Ricky
did it
Henderson
together.
says he's the best baseball player of all time. Just ask Ricky Henderson. He's also
but
not
see-
the best baseball
Let
player.
me
You
finish.
know
Let me
that.
finish,
I
please.
saw him yesterday, actually.
Please. So when I think about Willie Anderson, what troubles me is that we've got a stat that we've got other evidence that points to that it's not accurate. This stat has not been verified, and there is clearly a differentiation in the Willie Anderson case pre that 16 sack and 13 season kind of unverified false number being put out there, and maybe a more realistic, like, hey, he gave up 49 or 15 sacks in 12, 13 seasons. Still a really good number. But the problem is his case is accelerating at a much faster pace as soon as that stat came out, and he's jumping other guys in the process. When I think not necessarily our process, but I look like guys like Wisniewski and Richmond Webb can't get to a certain point, and Willie Anderson all of a sudden is jumping them and getting
Yeah,
to the
maybe it
finalist
did
round.
because here he is in our group too.
In our group, though, we're not necessarily the voters. Like, we're better.
Well, I know, but I mean, I'm just saying that it
The
did.
same, what I'll say to that, Kirk, is that the same thing happened. So we started 2 years ago, and when we started, whoever it was who made the Willie Anderson case mentioned the 16 sacks, and we all went, "Yeah, I heard that. That sounds dope." And but because why not? Here's the sequencing. In 2018, Willie Anderson was starting an offensive line camp. He connected with the Bengals. They gave him a hard drive or multiple hard drives, whatever, of all of his games. He and his offensive line coach, Paul Alexander, watched all of the hard drives, watched all the games, graded him out, and came up with this number: 16 sacks in 13 seasons. In 2019, for the first time ever, Willie Anderson tweeted that stat out. He tweeted it out a few other times. It caught on. And by 2020, toward the end of 2020, this time of 2020, when they're voting on the semifinals, that was the first time that Willie Anderson jumped up into the semifinals. He wasn't in any buzz prior to that. And so it went from 7 or 8 years of nothing to this stat coming out, to people all going, "Wow, really? That's amazing." And not realizing that, you know what, if the guy had only allowed 16 sacks in 13 seasons, we would have noticed. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
we would have noticed. Not just us, like everybody. So my view on it is that it is a number that has, like Jeff noted, accelerated him up, not just past other tackles, but past other guards,
Past other Bengals.
past other
Yes.
Bengals, absolutely. And we have reached out. I've texted or I tweeted to some of those guys, Anderson, Alexander, Jeff Hobson. Just been like, have you guys looked at this? Because here's all these videos of sacks that he seems to have allowed, and you don't know how it's being graded, but there's somewhere just the dude gets, he just gets beat. Like it's his guy, and But I think that seeing that Stats LLC has put out that he allowed 49 sacks. I mean, if you who are you going with Stats LLC, or are you going with the guy and his coach sitting and watching tape?
Especially when we can't
There's
see
also
like
the
the methodology.
Right. There's also the problem of, yeah, he says that he gave up 0 sacks between 99 and 2001, but PFF existed in his final 3 years. PFF says that he gave up, I think it's 6 sacks over those 3 seasons, which is still incredible, but that leaves 10 sacks over his first 10 seasons, except he says he didn't give up any in those middle 3. So now you've got 10 sacks that have to be divided up. This is like this is like the JFK bullet, you know?
Yeah.
There's too many people who got hit with strays for this theory to work. So now you've got that kind of an issue, because now you've got, based on his numbers, he's saying he only gave up 10 sacks between 96 and 98 plus 02 to 05, but none in the middle and only. So I would say that until there's some kind of an answer on that figure, I would not feel comfortable voting him in just on that basis, because he has just skyrocketed up. He still has a lot of time left. Everyone who talks about this number, question notes first, I think Willie Anderson is a Hall of Famer, but so I'm in that category. I think he's a butt. I think you should get a clear number before everybody just jumps on and says, hey, well, a guy who only allowed 16 sacks, how could he not be in camp?
Okay. One name that I think a lot of us are big on, myself included, is Randall Cunningham. Never been a semi-finalist. I believe I'm correct on that.
Correct.
Ken, I want to throw that to you. Am I correct that he's one of the men who really changed the game of quarterback in the 80s?
I always have a tough time with that terminology, because nowadays everybody uses it. Every person that comes up for the Hall of Fame, they change the game. It's like, well, how'd they change the game? I don't know. They gained more yards than other people. They threw more yards than somebody else. So what? Next year, you're going to have somebody else beating that too. Did they change the game? So I have a tough time using that terminology when it comes to anybody. Now, was Randall Cunningham a special quarterback? Absolutely. Would I put him in the Hall of Fame? That I struggle a little more with. I know I'll probably get some heat on that, but I just, to me, I'm a small hall guy, and I want to see somebody who's elite for an extended period of time. I'm not sure if I can really put Randall Cunningham in the same level as like a Montana or Brady or anybody like that. He definitely, changed the way that, people had to defend him because of his running abilities.
Who changed the game?
Well, I wouldn't say he changed the game. He just modified things slightly.
which is changing, that's still a change.
There was a reason Vic, a few years later, being a substandard passer, was taken #1 overall out of Virginia Tech.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there was some tie back to Randall Cunningham and seeing like, hey, as electric as Randall was, they could envision Vic as like quarterback of the 21st century. And the thing I always struggle with Cunningham is when I look at some of these other quarterbacks that got into the Hall of Fame. Jack's great point always about, basically, if you're a quarterback that was eligible the last 20 years, unless your name was Kurt Warner and you had to wait a couple rounds, you got in on the first ballot, right? 3 times for Kurt Warner. Everybody else's first ballot. Right. When I look at Randall Cunningham compared to like a Jim Kelly or a Troy Aikman, and that is not to me to say that those other guys don't belong. It's me saying that when I look at what Randall was able to do relative to the lack of help that he had around him, relatively speaking, you could point to that 1998 Minnesota Vikings team and say that was the one time he truly had an elite offensive crew around him. And look what he did. You could argue that he was the NFL MVP. If I'm not mistaken, the NEA actually voted him the MVP in 1998, which was a players voted award over Terrell Davis in the 2,000-yard season. And when you're talking about, this was a guy, there's always this thought about like the Eagles defense was so dominant and so elite. They were pretty good. To say they were statistically elite is absolute bullshit. They aren't. The numbers are there. I'm not wrong. Like, they gave up some big games. They played poorly in some big spots. And when you look at the fact that Randall Cunningham He had young Chris Carter, the only touchdown catches Chris Carter, declining Mike Quick, Keith Jackson, to be fair, who should be in the Hall of Fame. Randall Cunningham led his team out of necessity in rushing several seasons in his career. Keith Byers was a good player, but he wasn't a Pro Bowler until he went Miami in like 93. And if you talk about the offensive line in Philly, name somebody other than Ron Heller, it's a challenge. And that offensive line stuck. So even when you talk about he took too many sacks, he was partially, I think Brian's called this out before, and it's really good about, he took too many sacks because he played in a really hard era in terms of the in the grass rule. That's one thing. Second, that was also a coaching piece early in his career from Buddy Ryan. Buddy Ryan would rather him take a sack for a yard loss, trying to make the big play happen on 3rd and long. There's also an element there of saying, we don't penalize a Barry Sanders for all the negative yardage runs that he had. We focus on all the positives. Why can't we do the same thing with Randall Cunningham with all of his positives? I know other guys like Kirk and Jax probably feel passionate around, so I'm going to shut up now, but I just wanted to put my piece out there about Randall.
No, absolutely. And that's why we're doing this.
I would just like to say one thing about Randall Cunningham, if you don't mind.
Please.
I'm surprised he's up this high on the list. That's all I have to say. That I'm surprised. And the reason I am surprised is when you look at his quarterbacking, let's put his running aside for a moment. When you look at his quarterbacking, he had four really probably pretty good seasons, which is similar to like Aikman, Bradshaw, and Namath. Now they're in the Hall of Fame. Do you think that Randall Cunningham has a better resume than those three? I wouldn't.
I think he has.
Aikman's got 3 Super Bowls. Bradshaw got 4 Super Bowls. Namath is in because he guaranteed a Super Bowl and got in. Cunningham never even got close. He got close one time to a Super Bowl. That was it.
In terms of
then you go down
the aberration.
Then you go down to the next tier, right? Of the similar type of stats for quarterbacking. You got Theismann, you got Craig Morton, Donovan McNabb, John Brody. Are those Hall of Famers? I would consider McNabb as probably the closest. That's where you have to say Cunningham actually lies. Now, does his running put him over the top and make him a Hall of Famer? Was it so good, his running so good that it made his team so much better that he should be in the Hall of Fame for? I just don't see it. I'm surprised that Cunningham's even up this high because he's on that tier with those last group of people.
You can't cut out the running though, because the running was a part of
it. But it's a quarterback. He is a quarterback. We look at quarterbacks who are in the Hall of Fame. I'm always saying is his running put him in the tier with Troy Aikman's 3 Super Bowls with the Cowboys, Terry Bradshaw's 4 Super Bowls with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and Joe Namath guaranteeing a Super Bowl and then backing up and having the first 4,000-yard season ever. Is that where we're putting Randall Cunningham because he's a good runner?
If we said we were talking about Randall Cunningham, again, I come back to the supporting cast does matter. Like it's an interesting, like we talk about Troy Aikman, and there's always, it's important context about like, this was a very accurate quarterback. He ran his team in big spots. Troy Aikman was really good. His regular season numbers were mid. There's no spin on that. Like they were mid. They are substandard. It's the other pieces that put him in. However,
and his top seasons were as good as Randall Cunningham's top season, roughly. They all had about 4 good seasons in their career.
How many times did Troy Aikman throw for over 20 touchdown passes in a season?
If you adjust for era, Randall Cunningham has 4 really good seasons, and that's it. That's Troy Aikman had that, Joe Namath had that, Terry Bradshaw had that. So did Joe Theismann. So did John Brody. So did Craig Morton. I'm just saying that if his running ability was so good, then put him in the Hall of Fame. But his quarterbacking does not get him in the Hall of Fame.
But I would say this
but
that's part of the picture.
Hold on.
One clarification on Randall Cunningham. He had 3 MVP seasons.
Burt Bell's 3 Burt Bell Awards, which is done by the executives, the coaches, and the players.
I'm talking about throwing stats.
No, I know. I know you're
in a season. If you adjust for era, these are statistical stats per season for a quarterback. These are his comps, so to speak. Do you think that he is better, should be in the Hall of Fame over Aikman, Bradshaw, and Namath? Or do you think that Craig Morton, Joe Theismann, Donovan McNabb, And the names I mentioned should be in the Hall of Fame. Because if you're going to put Randall Cunningham in the Hall of Fame, then you got to start thinking about those guys too. And that's why
that's a bullshit grouping. There's no way Craig Morton is in that same class. I'm sorry.
Absolutely. Adjusted for error, he had 4 top 400 seasons as a quarterback, Craig Morton. That's as many as Randall Cunningham.
But where would you put Craig Morton at? I mean,
he's not even close to the Hall of Fame. That's what I'm saying. Why is Randall? Why are we even talking about Randall Cunningham?
Because like, okay, as a kid growing up, I wanted to play quarterback. Like Randall Cunningham was that guy that I wanted to be like. And I think, you know, when you think, for me, I just thought of the Eagles as a really, you know, in my lifetime, the Eagles been a very good franchise. And I think it started with Randall Cunningham. But I also, while you all were talking, I was looking at the similar players. I'm looking at the Pro Football Reference, similar players whose career was of similar quality and shape. And they did all these, you know, similar players. So they compared his third year to Troy Aikman. His first his years 3, 4, 5, and 6 were all compared to Troy Aikman. 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then also 4, 5, and 6 was 3 through 6 was also compared to Drew Brees. His year 4 was compared, year 4 and 5 were compared to Joe Montana. The thing is, when you think about the supporting cast he had in Philadelphia, it really wasn't anything to write home about. I mean, we all know he got sacked 72 times in 1986. He got sacked 54 times in 1987 and 88. He got sacked 50 plus times. He was getting beat up in Philadelphia. And that's because this team did not build around him. You give him an O-line, you give him an O-line, a running back, and a wide receiver, and a target, he would have been a first ballot Hall of Fame.
That's what they say about John Elway in the 80s too. He took his team to 3 Super Bowls. Cunningham didn't get even close back then. He got there close at the Vikings. So that's what I'm saying. Like, you can say supporting cast all you want. Is Cunningham better than those people that you just said he was compared to? Absolutely not. He's not even close.
I would say Cunningham was better than Bradshaw in many areas, and I would say he's better than Aikman, and I would even say
for a Hall of Fame bid
and better than Jim Kelly.
4 Super Bowls. 4 Super Bowls.
I think
I would say that.
I mean, if we're gonna talk about Super Bowls, let's take Dan Fouts out. Let's take Dan Fouts out. You know,
Dan Fouts was an incredible quarterback, though. That's the thing. Yeah, Randall Cunningham wasn't.
Okay, who had Craig Morton on their bingo card today? Because it wasn't me.
Why would it?
God.
Okay.
So, no, because I want to refute this point by Thomas, because we're talking about like his numbers compared to Aikman. Like, that's not true. Aikman never threw for 3,500 yards in a season. Cunningham did twice. That's a fact. When you talk about 20 to 24 touchdown passing seasons, Cunningham had 3, Aikman had 1. Cunningham also had 2 seasons of 30 or more touchdowns. He was top 5 in the league, or top 10 in the league in touchdown passes, 3 times top 5. Aikman's combined total in that category was 3. And that was with getting to play with Michael Irvin and Alvin Harper. I know Harper's not a Hall of Famer, but we remember Harper being really good. He had Novacek, and he had Moose Johnston, and he had the Great Wall of Dallas and Emmitt Smith. You look at that supporting cast around Troy Aikman, and I look at what Randall Cunningham did with the supporting cast that he had around him. And that shit's incredible. And that 98 season I keep pointing to with Minnesota, the one season he had the elite supporting cast that some of these other guys we've mentioned had. Look at those numbers in 98. The players thought he was the MVP over Terrell Davis, who had a historic 2,000-yard passing season.
So, okay, so at this point, we've got, out of the 5, there's been some discussion on 2. When we're looking at the other 3, does anyone have anything negative? We're trying not to be negative here, but you kind of have to in some capacity to eliminate the other 3, which again, for reference, they were, I think I'd have this ready. I don't. Jared Allen, Dwight Freeney, Andre Johnson.
What's so special about Jared Allen?
The
He had a few great years, but like, he was a one-dimensional player. I'm sorry.
I made a whole case last year about Jared Allen. He was awesome. Just
pass him through and.
Did anyone speaking to did anyone see how he was named in the Ring of Honor? He literally rode on horseback in the stadium, actually.
Yes, we saw that. Yes.
Yeah, but as for me,
So
I mean,
my question was, I guess, who are we illuminating now?
We're basically saying, like, out of these 5, are we ready to put a bunch through? We're not eliminating anybody. We're just
Oh,
saying.
I get you. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought we were going negative.
Well, we are.
I
We
would
are because
say-
I mean, like, this is it.
Well, plus we have Ben Coates, Peanut Tillman, and Neil Smith were
No,
lumped in with
I would say I want to see the next tier.
Yeah,
I know for
there's
Yeah.
still a gap of people we haven't even talked about.
Okay.
Cunningham,
I
Yeah,
know
was
Kirk.
that I didn't vote for out of that group, but I think everyone makes good arguments for him. My only thing with Cunningham is always, I think if he never got injured, we don't even need to have a discussion. But
Okay.
when he got injured, he had to change the entire way he played,
Yep.
and it wasn't nearly. I mean, he was unbelievable to watch. He was Lamar Jackson style with maybe a better arm, and but he was that level of
3
excitement
decades before.
in a generation where no one else played that way. So
Mhm.
he was super fun to watch, but then he got hurt and he wasn't the same until he became, ridiculous for
I
Minnesota.
want to call out one last thing, Dan, to your point when we talk about Randall. He had several years of the Rich Kotite factor.
I was going to point out he was
Yeah.
poorly
Yeah,
coached.
so, like,
all of his
even
career filled up.
Like Buddy Ryan wasn't there the whole entire time. I think he always gets associated, like, his whole entire time with Philly was that, and it wasn't. Like, it was his old offensive coordinator, Rich Kotite, that took over. We know he's a knucklehead, and like he tried to change the offense and make it, not fit Randall. He tried to fit his system, and he tried to force the quarterback in, which was dumb because Kotite was dumb. Jets fans know all about that.
oh,
Thing like-
believe me, I'm
He didn't-
I'm used to it here.
Hold
They-
on,
they despise me.
he didn't get a Marv Levy to play with for a good portion of his career, or a Jimmy Johnson, or even like a Barry Switzer. Like, Barry Switzer won a Super Bowl. We can say whatever we want about him, but he won a Super Bowl. Even if it was with Jimmy's team, he still won a Super Bowl. Like, the Cowboys had a couple of good years under Switzer. He was saddled with a mediocre head coach in Buddy Ryan, who only cared about one side of the ball, and Rich Kotite. I rest my case. That's the difference too.
Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna give you because Jack and I'll agree with that. I'm gonna give you the tier 3, which is 6. So we're gonna have 11 players,
Yep.
and out of those 11 players, we are going to just hold back 3.
Okay.
Okay, and for further discussion. So Anderson and Cunningham might very well be those 2, but these are the ones who still also received at least 10 votes. I'm just gonna put the whole thing there. So this is a combined tier 2, tier 3.
Yeah, I'm used to Rich Kotite. He's reviled over here.
So tier 3, I'll read them out. Steve Wisniewski, Tom Nalen, Steve Smith, Ricky Waters, Reggie Wayne, Richmond Webb. So now we have 11 players, and again, we're just going to hold back 3. We're going to put 8 through, and then we're going to have 16 already as our 25. Okay?
So what do we?
So
We
we're going to
didn't
vote
include-
on the 3 that we hold back. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
We didn't include Ben Coates, Peanut Tillman, or Neil
No,
Smith. Like,
No,
we
because
never-
like right now, we're just going to have 16 already through, and then there's going to be 1 tier left.
Yeah, this group is where my bread is buttered.
Yeah.
Like,
A lot of
you,
good shit on this.
you and me both. You and me both, Jack. You and me both.
hey,
So,
hey,
I'm-
Ken,
Just
I have
spells
a-
out Reggie Wayne and be done with it.
I have a question for Ken. Ken, have you heard about that whole Willie Anderson sack count thing and the discrepancy between the number he put out and the numbers that other sources have?
Yeah, I definitely have heard that. I haven't gone through and watched the film myself to verify it. But yeah, I've definitely heard it, and that's why I really have paused with Anderson putting him through until I have a chance to investigate it.
Like, it could come back that he gave up 49 sacks in 13-14 years. It's still a really good number.
Yeah,
It
it's a
just-
matter of putting it into context. So you got to see
That's
how
right.
he did compared to everybody else at that same position. You also have to look at blocking schemes too to see, is he picking up the right person when he's blocking, that type of stuff. So there's a lot that goes into it that you'd have to really take a look at to really analyze and make sure that you're getting the right numbers and you're putting it in context with his peers.
Okay, so we've already got votes coming in. So these are so people are already voting for the 3 you're taking out or holding back.
Yeah.
We don't waste any time.
All right, I
I'll-
like it. Okay.
But I will make one case to make sure you. I'm not going to make any case for people to stay out because Johnson, I would argue, is the most deserving wide receiver that's not in the Hall of Fame. That's in the modern list, in my personal opinion. So there's no way I would take him out. So yeah.
Yeah, and I just want to add to that as well. I think Andre Johnson deserves to be in ahead of even Torrey Holt. If you look at Holt and like say Reggie Wayne, and nothing against those guys, great receivers in their own right. Look who the quarterback for Andre Johnson. He was dealing with Sage Rosenfels, Matt Schaub, and
Ryan Mallett, David Carr.
and well,
I
also
live this. I live in
also
Houston.
yeah, but also look who was opposite him, like Walter. Like what other receivers did he have? I mean, the other two had Hall of Fame wide receivers on the other side and Hall of Fame quarterbacks for most of their careers throwing to them. What Andre Johnson was able to do to dominate just is remarkable beyond any stats.
Hall of Fame running backs as well, Ron.
Yeah.
Like, they were like Andre Johnson is just the wide receiver that I would pound for because he checks all the boxes for me. In spite of literally everything, he was still able to ball out tremendously. And imagine if the Lions took him instead of Charles Rogers. Just imagine that for a second. Rest in
Another
peace,
thing I
Charles
didn't have on the
Rogers.
bingo card. Okay, so who's counting this up?
I am.
All right, I actually didn't vote yet, but I did have one quick question. Wasn't someone going to campaign for Nayland, or are we saving that?
Well, I was going to, but Kirk said I didn't have to because he was so awesome.
Okay.
I convinced everybody last time, but I
He's
will. If
not
you
a-
want to
he-
hear me
he-
talk, I'm happy.
Hold
He's
on,
been on
let
one
me see
person's
if I can
ballot so
vote three
far.
without him.
So
Yeah, no,
I
yeah,
think-
same thing. Because we had Jack sort of repeat everything about Tillman, and same thing.
All right, you want me to talk about Nayland? I'll talk about
Yes.
Nayland. I'm happy to. I mean, I'm wearing the
Sure,
shirt
what the
I
hell, why
designed
not?
myself for Tom Nayland.
He said, "Take that, Ron. I could do this too."
Yeah. Okay. So I'll be quick about it, but I just want you guys to think about those times when you saw somebody get an All-Pro or an MVP or whatever from a sport, and you said that was the wrong choice, right? And it doesn't happen very often, but you can name a few times where you're just like, whoa, why did they give it to this person rather than this person? And I really think that in 1998, Tom Nayland was a victim of that. And unfortunately, that cascaded throughout his career and in a negative way. So 1998, we talked about Terrell Davis, MVP, 2,000-yard season, one of the best 2,000-yard seasons of all times, if you consider lack of fumbles and touchdowns, an incredible season. And that he did that on a line without Gary Zimmerman. He wasn't there, wasn't full of Hall of Famers. He's the only one that you think about maybe getting into the Hall of Fame on that line. It was Tony Jones, Harry Swain. So it wasn't like the 97 when they had another Hall of Famer on the line. So he was the center, the leader of that line that did that. And in 1998, the Broncos were also the number 2 offense in the league behind the Minnesota Vikings with Randall Cunningham, who we talked about. Number 2 rushing offense, number 1 rushing offense for touchdowns. He lost that award to Dermontti Dawson. Now, I'm not saying Dermontti Dawson was not a great center. He was. It's at the end of his career. He'd already had some. It almost feels like he got that award over Tom Nayland because of who he was. And the reason I say that is because Pittsburgh Steelers had a terrible team that year. They had one of the worst rushing attacks. They were, I think, ranked number 28th in touchdowns and rushing. Jerome Bettis is a Hall of Fame running back, only had like 1,100 yards, 1,184, I think, something like that. It was an incredible team. And I know this is an individual award, but it's also a team sport. The Broncos were monumentally better that season. So I'm saying that I think Tom Nayland got cheated out of that award. And I think they gave him the All-Pro 2 the next year to kind of make up for it. And then he got his first All-Pro the second year after that. So what I'm saying is when you look at these awards, you got to kind of like put them out of your mind and look at Tom Nalen on the field, because not only that, he also had to compete with Kevin Mawai for his entire career, who's in the Hall of Fame, for one award, All-Pro award, and for Damari Dawson half of his career. And if Jeff Saturday gets in, which he probably will, that'd be the third one. He's the only center that's really had to have that level of competition for those awards throughout his career. If you
Oh,
look
in the
at
AFC too.
you look
Yeah,
at and you look at you look at through the history, it's like the one center who's getting all the awards, his career winds down. You go Otto, then Talangier, his career winds down, then you got Webster, then Stevenson. So they didn't have to compete as much for those awards. So what I'm saying is, look at what happened on the field. Tom Nalen, back-to-back Super Bowl champions, and when we're talking about changing the game, that offensive line changed the game. The principles of that zone blocking scheme are still being used today, and he ran it to perfection. And he's the only one of only two players, centers, I should say, who blocked for 10 1,000-yard rushers and one 2,000-yard rusher. The other one's in the Hall of Fame, Kevin Mawai. He's his peer, right? And he did it with only 4 years of Terrell Davis and the rest of, well, Clinton Portis isn't a nobody, but he's not a Hall of Famer. And you had Landis Gary, who was described as a ham sandwich. You had other people that you probably wouldn't even remember their name if I told you their name. Cell phone salesman.
I remember Quentin Griffin. Don't do that to me.
he wasn't the 1,000-yard rusher that I'm talking about. So you look at what happened on the field. Tom Nalen was able to do it with a patchwork offensive line for a lot of the time. I mean, you had Dan Neal came in. He was okay. He was good, but he wasn't great. You had Matt Lepsis on that line. You had a lot of no names. Tom Nalen was the one who helped put it all together and took that scheme that was thought of up by Alex Gibbs and implemented on the field. That was back when they called all the line called the plays, center called the plays at the line, or not the plays, but the coverages and whatnot, or
Protections.
Protections. Thank you.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. Mhm.
So he was the leader of that line. He's only got one peer. And he doesn't have the awards to go with it for the reasons I said. So think about what happened on the field. That's all I got to say.
Yeah.
Block for a
Thomas,
2,000-yard rusher, changed the game. Literally changed the game. Not like Randall Cunningham, but actually that line they're still using it today, even though the rules have been changed to kind of limit its effectiveness.
All right,
That's my quick
can
version.
I add one thing?
Oh, it's great.
Yeah, you bet.
Can
love it.
I just add one quick thing to segue from what you just said, Thomas, that 1998 Kevin Mawai, right? Broncos played the Jets in the AFC Championship game. Curtis Martin, 13 carries, 14 yards. Terrell Davis went over 150, I think a little bit more with reception yards. Head to head. I mean, I know that you're dealing with different defenses and dynamics, but it was same thing happened against Pittsburgh the year before in the championship game.
We're
It
very
was a Parcells coach defense. So you know they were
Thomas
well
basically
coached
told
defense.
us that Jeff Saturday's getting in the Hall of Fame. Wow.
Look, I think he gets in before Nalen just because it was the Peyton Manning era. He gets a lot of love, but
We haven't
You
had
He
that
just got a
yet.
head coaching job out of nowhere. So why
You
not
never know.
put him in the
Listen,
Hall of
I
Fame?
think Tom Nalen was a better. And think about this too. Olin Kritz actually said that he used to put Tom Nalen's tape on to learn how to play center better. And that's someone who we might talk about at some point as getting into the Hall of Fame. That's the kind of respect that they had for Tom Nalen. So put away the award thing. I just don't think that, in a small market, he didn't get the love that he should have got. I think he actually should have, if he'd have got that 98 All-Pro, he probably had 4 first-team All-Pros, and he's probably already in the Hall of Fame.
I call him the Reuben Brown of centers for his era. And what I mean by that is that he played most of his career on the back end of the 90s decade and played most of his top careers in the front end of the 2000s decade. If he played for the entire decade, like from 1990 to 1999, he would definitely be at least one of the top 2 picks for the all-decade team. However, because he is in that weird quagmire of the middle, he kind of gets lost in the shuffle compared to like a Saturday or a Kreutz and whatnot. So that's mine.
Okay. So we've got the votes in. So Steve Smith, Ricky Waters, and Randall Cunningham have been held back, which also goes to show I should never sort of like stand for anyone. I also stood for Herschel Walker a couple years ago. Well, that's not looking too good for me in many fronts. But anyway,
Run off.
Good job.
Yeah.
I'm getting my
Hey,
badge
but
out.
Herschel Walker helped the Cowboys win all those Super Bowls. So
And and if you count his USFL stats, he actually has more yards than anyone.
Shit, Jesus Christ.
Kirk, I'm getting my Hall of Fame. I've got a Hall of Fame badge.
I don't want I don't even want to go there on how overrated that Herschel Walker trade is in the scope of Cowboys history.
Okay. Well, yeah. Okay.
I'm I'm only kidding. They used it fairly well. They got a haul for that,
We're
but
just
they
doing
had
this to
other
mess
things in
around.
place.
I'm just saying, if we came from apes, then how come they're still apes? But anyway.
He,
Okay.
science with Herschel Walker. It's
All
like
right.
it's like listening.
And I broke my rule. I said we weren't even talking politics, and here I go. All right, so here's what we've got left. We have 19 players left. 16 are in, so that leaves us with 9 slots.
Yep.
So there's a lot of people we haven't even talked about yet. So do we put them all in this group here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, let's see them.
All right.
Wait. Did we just put Willie Anderson in after all that?
Not yet.
Yep. No, we did.
No,
he's
Anderson's
in?
Yeah.
Kirk's
'cause
saying
we're
he
just
is.
taking 3 out.
Oh, okay. All right.
1 through 5
So
are in.
show us who's in and then who we have left, if you don't mind.
I don't mind at all.
I actually
think
didn't
those
vote
three are
last
just
round.
I feel like we're missing a couple people like that we haven't
I don't
mentioned
think
yet.
those,
Yeah, I
I don't
didn't
think we
vote.
have.
Well, I think we
can put
didn't
these-
do like 2 of the tiers in the middle there.
We
Dennis.
haven't.
So
That's
there's still like
exactly
2
right.
groups
Yeah,
left
we
that we
haven't.
haven't even looked at.
Yeah,
That's true. All right, so these are the ones who are in. What I'm just sort of putting here through.
Dan Kelly just said Dan just said Willie and Randall.
that didn't change anything.
Well, it does,
no, wait,
it
that's
does
not true.
change,
No, Willie Anderson is now tied at 6.
and then we bounce him out. Good riddance.
Willie's now out.
Yes.
Yeah, because he tied for 3rd, right?
All right, then Willie's
Correct.
out. Fine.
No. Steve Smith, Waters, and Randall are the 3.
No, you had one of them had 6 votes, and now Willie has 6 votes.
2 of them had 6.
Yes.
2 of them. Had
Steve
6.
Smith and Randall have 7.
Oh, there's a late
And
vote, got
Waters
you.
and Anderson
Okay.
have 6. So
So
they're
Willie
all.
Anderson is now held back. So now is that where we're at?
Yeah.
So that's what happens when you make up your career stats or something, right?
Thank you,
get
Thomas.
punished.
Fair
That's
enough.
right. We do that to advance Tom Nalen. We're fighting the good fight here.
All
I'll
right,
tell you,
all right,
I'll tell you
great.
this.
I'll take
also,
back what I said about Cunningham then.
not only that, Tom.
Yes, he didn't know it'd be
Nalen
this easy.
Nalen actually, Nalen, your pitch was so good that you only got one person that said no to you. Only one.
Who
Only
could
one.
that be? Was it because of my Randall Cunningham thing?
Wasn't me.
No, I voted
don't
for
care.
Tom Nalen in the 25.
No,
I didn't
it's
vote
fine.
that
It's
against
fine.
you.
I'm only teasing. I don't
Uh,
care who it is. Everybody's got their own opinion.
We
I
will
don't care.
rescind. We
I
will
don't care.
rescind Thomas's Cunningham vote, and it actually counts as 2 off. So Cunningham advances. Good job.
Yay.
Cunningham is now advanced.
Yes.
Damn it.
Nice. All right.
Wait, hold on. I got something right. I actually pitched something. Yay!
Yay, you're not a loser now.
No. What's his name here for delete and kick off of the group here?
Oh no.
Right, Randall.
Not sure Randall was even as good as his brother.
Well, his brother should be in the Hall of Fame because it's not just the NFL Hall of Fame, it's a Pro Football Hall of Fame. And his numbers, I saw him at Cal State Fullerton. First of all, he was all conference in both sports, right? Baseball and football. He probably should have played baseball. He was an amazing baseball player, but goes up to Canada, goes for over 60,000 passing yards. An amazing player.
Well, wait, you're thinking of Damon Allen, not Sam Cunningham. Damon Allen, you're thinking of.
Yeah,
he
Sam-
played in Canada. Sam
Oh, you
Cunningham
want
always
to
played
say
with the
Sam
Patriots.
Cunningham, yeah. Well, I mean, he had a fairly short but great. Speaking of fullbacks, right? We're talking about
He
great
is
fullbacks.
he's the all-time leading rusher for the Patriots.
Which is a pretty low bar.
which is the least amount of yards for a leading rusher of any
Of
franchise.
any franchise, yes. I said it's a
That's
pretty low bar.
He
pretty
just
wild.
died too. He died last year,
He did,
Sam
yeah,
Cunningham.
last year.
Yeah.
Randall
Okay, hold
Cunningham
on.
also
We-
had
we-
Kenny
we've
Mayne
got,
and Suge Knight as college teammates. Just saying.
Damon Allen, that's a different story because I think only like one person has more than him for the CFL.
Yep.
Um,
He's the number 2 in all-time total offense and number 2 in passing in CFL history.
Yeah. Let me just check.
Yeah. So the 4 that were back, we were joking about Cunningham. the integrity of the process. Steve Smith Sr., Cunningham, Willie Anderson, Ricky Waters are out.
Okay, so
Those are the
Smith,
four.
Cunningham, Anderson, Waters held back now. Okay, so Cunningham is not through. Okay.
Yeah.
Only Anthony Calvillo has more passing yards. than the
Okay,
team.
so then Kirk, who just went in?
Yeah, who's in?
Who did we just put in?
We put in Andre Johnson, Dwight Freeney, Jared Allen, Steve Wisniewski, Tom Nalen, Reggie Wayne, Richmond Webb.
Yes to all, especially if you're Steve Wisniewski.
So so now we've got 15 in then.
I'm missing one. Johnson, Freeney, Allen, Nalen, Wiz, Webb.
Johnson, Freeney, Allen, Wisniewski, Nalen, Wayne, Webb.
Wayne, got it.
Wayne,
All right, so now I'm putting through everyone who's left. So we've got to put through, so if we got 8, so we have 10. Last time we did a tie, if you remember right. So, and which has turned out to be exactly what they did because they copied us.
Of course.
Of course they did.
Okay, so these are the remaining. The first thing that was at
Yeah, this is who we have left.
the
So-
8. Those are the first 8 that we automatically put through at the very beginning. Then the next list is the remaining votes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So here's what we have left, and we've got to come up with 10 out of this group. So people we haven't talked about yet: Albert Lewis, 9 votes; Vince Wilfork, 9 votes; Kevin Williams, 9 votes; Sean Alexander, 8; James Harrison, 8; Donovan McNabb, 8; Henry Ellard, 8; Pat Swilling, 8; Darren Woodson, 8, and the ones held back was Smith, Waters, Anderson, and Cunningham. And then the other tier right behind it, and we'll just put them all together. Advancing from that was Tillman, Neil Smith, and Ben Coates. They're joining Jari Evans, Jeff Saturday, Eric Allen, Cornelius Bennett, Ruben Brown, Leslie O'Neill, and Heinz Ward.
I'm actually glad to see Leslie O'Neill's finally getting a little
Yes.
bit of love.
2.5
Yes, very
sacks,
much so.
finally, yes.
Yeah,
He was a damn good player.
Yeah,
He was a
He
great
is,
player.
he is so underrated.
He was a great player.
Can we start off with Albert Lewis though? When we
can
think
someone?
about
Yeah, because
guys in
like
their last
honestly,
year?
I don't get it. So please, someone fill me in.
Yeah, and I think like it's a shame like Brian can't talk because I know he would do an even better job of pumping up Albert Lewis. But when we think about Albert Lewis, I don't want to see him kind of fall under a similar fate as his former teammate Deron Cherry. Here's a guy that was one of the elite players at his position during his time. When I think of elite players at his position, not only was he premier elite like man cover corner during his time, he was also elite as a special teams player and as a guy that could come in and block kicks. And I think, Jack, we were talking about the stat before, was it like 12 career block punts, some like ridiculous number for that position, and like 4 or 5 of them were returned back for touchdowns. Like, so when we're talking about, this is a guy, you know, you talk about like the 4-time Pro Bowl, 2-time AP1 first team All Pro. But you're talking about not only was he elite as a defensive player, he was also elite as a special teams guy. I even think that was at the 86 season that the Chiefs needed to make the playoffs. And it was a game in Pittsburgh against the Steelers, I believe. And the Chiefs literally won the game entirely based off of their special team scoring all of their points, which was sparked by an Albert Lewis punt block that was returned for a touchdown, or like recovered in the end zone for a touchdown. So when you think about, here's a guy that had the unfortunate task of a good portion of his career were on some really bad Chiefs teams, but he was a stud on some bad Chiefs teams before Marty got there, before Neil Smith, before Derek Thomas. You know, and even later in his career, like he was still a pretty good corner in Oakland with the Raiders. Like he had a very long career. You know, you talk about 42 career interceptions.
Yep.
12
and a half
a guy that
sacks.
wasn't I'm sorry.
And 12 and a half sacks.
In a time where he wasn't deployed that much as he wasn't deployed significantly as like a pass rusher, like maybe a Rondé Barber was utilized more in that opportunity. So relative to his opportunities, that sack number is really impressive. We talk about, you know, like forced fumbles, fumble recoveries, like he forced 13 fumbles, had 13 fumble recoveries. When I think like the totality of the turnover picture, you know, that's 55 career turnovers just forced on defense, not to mention like the game-changing plays as a special teamer. And I think like you just look at some of the other guys here and talking about, this is a guy that's in the last year of his eligibility. I think he falls victim in part to the process of the Hall of Fame committee never gets it in person together and actually votes about guys until they get to the top 15, because again, they don't measure up to us. Like, this is a chance where we can actually talk and we start vetting guys like this. Like, these are guys that the postseason honors don't do him full justice for just how good he really was.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I'm a big Albert Lewis guy too, and I've made cases for him in other places before, and he falls into that category of, part of it is just timing, right? Because there's other great corners. Pat Fisher never gets talked about. He was an incredible corner forever, right?
Yeah,
And nobody
Fisher
talks about
was
it.
incredible.
Albert Lewis is one of those guys. I still get upset when I think about Louis Wright not having ever sniffed the Hall of Fame, despite being a great corner for so long. And there's all this talk about Everson Walls, and Everson Walls certainly deserves to be discussed, but Dave Brown was basically a slightly better version of Everson Walls, and nobody talks about him. So yes, I'm agreeing on Albert Lewis.
One thing that has always been consistent, and granted, it's only been our third year, there's not a lot of love from this group for Hines Ward. And I want to see if there's anyone here who's going to make the case for him.
Could we reinvest that time in Pat Swilling?
I'm more than happy. I said last year that they got the wrong Saint.
Well, I would say this, that if you're going to talk about, the only one I would really go for Ward in particular is if you're talking about the, hate to be this guy, but I guess for being unique for what he was, because I don't know, like, how do I say this correctly? Could one argue that him being a rare, oh geez, how do I say this?
Don't finish this.
Okay, let's
Vinny, stick to football. Jesus Christ, let's talk about that.
So him as a player, he was on, once again, run-dominated offenses most of his career. He was a number one receiver for a while, and then transitioned fairly gracefully into being a number two and maybe even number three, but still managed to be productive in key times. Was once again maybe the best blocking receiver of his era, and maybe people don't care that much about that, but he's a devastating blocker. And once again, a guy who could do a little bit of everything, right? Passed for 455 yards in a bowl game its sophomore year of college at Georgia, led Georgia 2 games in rushing, right? And I mean, he could have played any position. He was big enough to play. He could have played safety, right? You know, he could have played a bunch of different positions at a fairly high level, emergency quarterback, whatever. Was he a Hall of Famer? I mean, I'm a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. I love Hines Ward, but no, he's not a Hall of Famer. But he's a terrific football player and a fun football player. And if there's, once again, Hall of Very Damn Good or whatever you want to call it, he deserves to be in that. But no,
I tend to agree with you, Bill. I tend to agree with you, Bill, because I mean, at what point in time, you know, in 2004, 2005, did anyone assume that Hines Ward was a top 10 wide receiver? I mean, you got around that time, you had guys like Larry Fitzgerald, you had Reggie Wayne, you had Randy Moss, you had
Ray Johnson, yes, right.
Andre Johnson.
There is one argument for him. He was a Pittsburgh Steeler. That's why he's going to get in.
That's a pretty good argument.
But also at the same time, L.C. Greenwood's not in the damn Hall of Fame. He played for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Greg Lloyd is not in the Hall of Fame, and he played for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So
Russell's another one I think of.
You know, it's so many players that played for that franchise, you know, that aren't in the Hall of Fame, even though they played for the Steelers. It's just like, you know, it's like the equivalent of Don Mattingly, you know, with the Yankees. You know, he's like the only guy in Monument Park that's honored that didn't win a World Series. Everybody else won a World Series. He's the only one that did not.
So let's finish this thing with the Steelers. We've got another great one here in James Harrison. And I don't think obviously we've never talked about him before.
I'm shocked. I was even really thinking about him too. I mean, Harrison during his time with the Steelers, I thought of as, for the most part, other than Polamalu, their main premier defender. Honestly, like getting the 100-yard pick six in the end zone, defensive player of the year. I mean, I don't really think of him that much, mostly because he has many years left. So I'm fine with leaving him out for right now.
Okay.
Yeah, I like James Harrison as a player. I think I think he's got a case for sure.
I just look at James Harrison. The one problem I have, and I think about it like similar to a Jared Allen, is like there were a few like real peak years, and then there was kind of like James Harrison, I think, was a better all-around football player. So if you were asking me, like, if I had to pick one that would advance versus the other, I pick James Harrison over
Oh yeah, same here.
Jared Allen.
honestly.
But I just that's why I struggle with a little bit with James Harrison. And maybe he gets help like the marquee Super Bowl interception return for a touchdown. Like that was a game-changing play. I can't deny that.
Without the Super Bowl MVP, we're not talking about Hines Ward, probably. I mean, how many years, Jack, you probably know this. How many years in a row now has he been a semifinalist? I think from year one, no?
He's been
Every
in
single
two
year.
times, I believe.
That's correct. Yeah. So he came on the ballot 2017. He was a first year semifinalist. He's been a semifinalist every year. That's 6 years. He has not been a finalist at all. So 6
Okay.
years on the ballot, 6 years as semifinalist.
It just
Yeah,
Jack,
so,
like
so Hines
well,
Ward,
wide receivers. Go ahead. Sorry. Go
yeah,
ahead.
Hines Ward we're back to the receiver dilemma, right? So what's happened with a bunch of these guys is they get up to these threshold of 900 or more receptions, right? And then people look at those numbers and say, wow, they're so high ranked in the top 15 all time. We've moved all these receivers through. And now, right, we're all faced with, okay, there's a lot of them. And the 900 really isn't as meaningful as the other impacts. And you begin to look at all these guys and realize we had a whole bunch of them on this ballot that were kind of similar to the debate about the early 2000s running backs, but it's a similar situation where how do you separate? In the case of these wide receivers, and Hines Ward is like the poster child for it, the number of career receptions really it doesn't carry the weight.
Right.
But yet it's seen as a number, gets him in the conversation. And then all of a sudden you see a whole bunch of other receivers coming in. He's on the ballot all these years. And then you realize, really, he isn't as valued or not as highly valued or ranked as a receiver from his era, even with those numbers. So he stays on there, but I think the luster on his on his career is sort of losing its shine. It's not really what people thought it would be, because you've got to sort all these wide receivers, and at some point, right, the music's going to stop. There's not going to be chairs for all of them to get in the hall, and he's in the room for that reason. But his case is now getting weaker and weaker as more and more of these receivers hit the ballot. That's kind of where we're at with him, and I don't really see a path for him.
And we have this group now that we have left of Ward, Steve Smith, who we held back, and now we've got Henry Ellard. And I think a lot of us are really big on Ellard.
Mm-hmm.
I was about to mention Ellard just as a guy that was before all these big numbers, and a guy that, we've said before, retired in the top echelon of receivers. And so he gets swept under because of some of the later guys. And so I'm always an Ellard check the box. If we're voting for him now to move forward, I'm going to vote for him. When he asks me for 25, I'm going to put him in there, and I'll keep moving him up. So I think it's worthy conversation.
Yeah, Henry Ellard was someone that was able to get a lot of stats way, way before everyone else was. In fact, when he retired, he was second all time in receiving yards, only behind Jerry Rice. Like,
I think he was behind Lofton too, but
third, yes.
I think he's behind James Lofton too. But you're right. I mean, he's top three.
And the big distinction there with Henry Ellard is that he did it at a time where he's averaging 18, 19, 20 yards of reception. So he wasn't playing in the same, like, I think that is a key point when we're talking about Ellard, is he didn't play the possession game. And I'm sorry, I just keep going back to his numbers, like compared to an Art Monk. And I think like Art Monk's in the Hall of Fame, like it happened. And I understand why it happened. I mean, I fully agree with it, but that doesn't matter. But when I look at Henry Ellard, I say, you look at the situation he was in, and again, we talk about like the quarterbacks that he had, like he's got Jim Everett throwing to him. Okay. Jim Everett wasn't a bum, but he wasn't a great quarterback. It wasn't he didn't have like pockets of Joe Theismann and like, Doug Williams and Jay Schrader, like having some different pockets of good years. Like, I'm just saying, when I look at these numbers and I say Henry Ellard had more 1,000-yard receiving seasons, like I just struggle to see like what was so special about Art Monk that never translated to Henry Ellard, other than the association with the team, where Art Monk wasn't even the number one wide receiver on his team. It was downtown Charlie Brown for the first Super Bowl. And then the last two, I think we would argue that it was Gary Clark that was. It wasn't Art Monk. The numbers support that.
Well,
Yeah, Henry Ellard had to,
teams did try to take Monk away also. I mean, even if you saw Art Monk late in his career, you forget how fast he was. He was a 300 intermediate hurdles champion for the state of New York in high school, was a terrific track athlete at Syracuse. So early Art Monk is different from the guy you're thinking of at the end of his career. Early Art Monk was a flyer. Late Art Monk, you know, by the time you get to Clark and Verdun and those other guys, is a different guy. He's a possession receiver.
But he was still more of a possession receiver. I think throughout his career, the numbers backed it up. He was never really the number one receiver. Like now you don't have to be fast to be the number one wide receiver, but if you go throughout the course of Monk's career, he wasn't. Like when I would say there was maybe a clear distinction between, let's say, a Henry Ellard and a Flipper Anderson.
Oh, I mean,
I think what you're saying is that
I'm a pro Henry Ellard guy. I'm just
Art
saying
Monk's in, so.
you don't have to be against Art Monk to be pro Henry Ellard. I think
I'm comparing the cases though, and I'm saying like,
but
If
I mean,
one's in the Hall of Fame, then why isn't the other one?
right.
Yeah,
But
that's
Art Monk in an offense, once again, that wanted to just pound the rock and then, you know, throw play action occasionally, managed to be the guy that people worried about still, right? People were worried about Art Monk. They still worried about, I mean, I've talked to people who coached against that team and have said, yeah, we worried about Art Monk because he was the guy on 3rd and 8 was going to get 8 yards or 9 yards or 10 yards. And now they keep driving the ball. You know, if we manage to somehow stop them on 2nd down and it's 3rd and 8, the guy we're trying to take away is Art Monk. I've talked to people who coached against the Washington teams of that era.
Not
and
only
that's
that,
probably why they didn't beat him more, because they focused on the wrong wide receiver.
not only that,
I'm just
Henry
saying.
Ellard-
Perhaps you are smarter than they are, Jeff. That might
Well, no, I'm just
No.
saying like that's what I'm just saying like the numbers kind of like support that. It's all I'm thinking like early in his career, downtown Charlie Brown was the number one guy.
Sure,
He was.
sure. I
love
watched
Charlie
Virgil say I watched all those dudes. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
I watched that team a lot.
And so I just come back to, it's not to say that Art Monk doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame.
Right.
I've just never understood why Henry Ellard wasn't held in a similar view, because there is very big similarities. It's just
Oh, yeah.
one played for the Rams and the other one played under one of the greatest coaches
But
and like team.
that's
I'm a
that's a
big
reason.
Henry Ellard guy. Like I want Henry Ellard. Henry Ellard to me reminds me of Billy Houghton, right? Who unfortunately died waiting to get in the Hall of Fame. Who played with guys like Kyle Rote, no offense to Kyle Rote, and guys like Babe
Eddie
Pirelli.
LeBaron.
Babe Pirelli. I think the best quarterback ever played was Frank Ryan in his couple of years with the Browns, and managed to put up all these numbers. And he's number one in both receptions and receiving yards at the time he retires. And he's never sniffed the Hall.
And that's probably because of his union leadership.
That's
back in
part
the
of it.
day.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kyle Road actually founded the Players Union. Don't forget.
Yep.
Hey,
Yeah,
guys, 'cause I think we're starting to lose people, and I know I'm gonna have to go soon.
Yeah.
Can I make
I
a,
think we're in violent agreement about Ellard.
can I make
Yes,
a-
we are
can I
all
make
in
a
violent
recommend-
agreement about
Go
Ellard.
ahead, Jack.
Can I make a recommendation here? And this is something that I look a lot at, which is years remaining. So we're only talking.
sorry,
about
say
20
that again, Jack.
Years remaining.
Years remaining.
Yep.
And we're only talking about 25, and we'll have a lot more time to talk about a lot more people. But to me, if we want to keep the conversation about Ellard, then let's put him in the 25. If you want to keep the conversation going about Albert Lewis, let's put him in the 25. If you want to keep the conversation going about Pat Swilling, let's put him in the 25. Because if we don't, that's it. They're gone, and they're in their final year. That's a wrap. And that's
Yeah,
why
I
some
think
of
I think at this point maybe we
some of
can.
these younger ones.
Leslie
I mean,
O'Neal.
Even as much as I'm a Charles Tillman guy, even his 3rd year, like it's not that big of a deal. He's not going to go in ahead of Revis. At this point, he's probably not going to go ahead of Rondé Barber, despite the way I feel. Yeah, you have some time here. You don't have time on Will Smith. You don't have time on Ben Coates. You know, Reuben Brown's at about the halfway point. You have some time on Jeff Saturday. You have a lot of time on Evans. Obviously, you have a lot of time on Anderson. You have a lot
Leslie
of time
O'Neal
on
doesn't
Steve
have a
Smith.
time.
All right, so let's do this. Let's put 5 through, put 5 back, see who we have left.
Sounds good.
All right, so because we have 15 in right now, so we're gonna vote in 5 right now.
What's the full list that we're
All
voting on?
right, yeah.
Bring it up.
You got that?
Yeah, I'm gonna bring it up right now. So yeah, so everyone now is voting 5 at this point.
Okay.
From the,
5.
from the- yeah,
Yeah.
from the list I'm gonna give you. And then after that, we're gonna vote 5 out. And then we're gonna see
Wait.
who's left.
So we're gonna vote We're
Five
voting
in,
five in. Okay.
Yes, 5 in.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, 5 in, and then after that, 5 who we're not going to discuss any further, leaving us with just to pick 5 from the remaining list. And we can go with and pretty much a lot of our thought process on that. So I will, as I'm doing that, and then I can promote my other stuff because I'm really good at that.
Yes, because I've been up since 5 a.m. So I need that pick me up of Kirk plugging stuff. Give me some Mick Foley cheap plug, sir.
Well, okay, well, if you're into weird songs that go to number 1, I've got the show for you. How the hell did this go number 1? Starring me and Andrea Testman and Brad Nelson. They joined me, of course. Last time we looked at Venus, but we did a twofer Tuesday.
Shocking Blue.
Yes, but we also went with Bananarama because they also went number 1 with the same song.
Yes.
I also told everyone why Andrew Ridgely is my hero. And I can tell you all this now, because think about this. You can't do this now, kids, because now if you've got a gay friend, everyone knows they're gay. But when you're best friends with George Michael and every girl wants to sort of be with George Michael, but he doesn't want to be with all the girls, you can get those girls.
Ooh.
Meta, dude.
That's what had happened for him. Also, George Michael had talent. Andrew Ridgely had none.
None. That's
So
true.
he was the best leech, and he's still married to Bananarama. In case you want to one of the Bananarama girls, in case you're wondering why I sort of brought up Andrew Ridgely. All that on how the hell did this go number 1? Next week we're actually looking at a song "Dreams" by Fleetwood Mac. Not because it's a weird song that went number 1, because it's their only number 1.
Yeah,
which is
Interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
Wait,
right.
I'm getting confused here. I'm seeing people put in names. It's probably I'm just tired. Like, was Randall eligible to be voted on here?
Yes.
Yes, you can vote yes or no for him. And obviously, as someone who's a big Cunningham stan like myself, I voted yes.
He was relegated from the last round down to this round.
Yeah.
So he's.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that, guys. Like I said, it's been
So we're doing the yeses first, right?
yes.
Okay, making sure. Okay.
Oh,
And then I've got another thing I can plug later.
And then once we do the yeses, we can do the 5 no's.
Right.
Sure.
Okay.
So-
Thank you, guys.
sorry, is this list from
I'll put the
Albert
list up again.
Lewis down to Ben Coates?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So the 5 we're putting through.
What if I thought they were all deserving?
And none of us
I'd
would
be like, no, you don't say.
Well, that's
The
another
hell
show.
you
but
say?
Yeah, I'll promote that one next, man.
We should entertain like the option of like having a super vote. Like one of us randomly could pick one person that we remove, so that way we never have to talk about Heinz Ward again. Sorry.
Evan would be so proud, my partner on this. He that's his least favorite football player. All time.
Shots fired.
He would be so
Ugh.
proud.
But you know, if only he was here, he could tell us how great Kevin Williams was.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to try to do that for him. But pretty much his argument, and it's a pretty damn good one. If we're to believe approximate value on Pro Football Reference, then Kevin Williams is one of the best that ever existed in that position.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Then I'm not going to believe that anymore.
Now, I didn't say I was Evan. I just said that was sort of his argument.
Yeah, it did. That approximate value is tricky.
It's yes.
Especially for a tight end.
Right.
Well, I'd say it's just a flat out flawed metric. Because I think were we talking? I think it was like 85 Bears, where Steve McMichael had the same grade as Walter Payton.
Yeah, that's the thing about it's like war.
Mhm.
Even though you can kind of sort of make it work, especially in baseball, you can kind of sort of make it work. The idea of creating one metric to rule them all in football doesn't work, unfortunately. There is no.
And I always hate about the stats that get thrown out by a lot of fans, and even being somebody that's kind of a math head, a stats head, there's a lot of people that cite these stats have no fucking clue. Sorry for the language, but they have no clue of how these are actually calculated.
Right.
You probably should have an idea, concept of how they're even determined or arrived at, calculated. to even know what you're citing. That's just always been like a pet
I,
peeve.
I can tell you the big reason why. It's because they want their guy in, 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 they want their guy in. There's your
No,
five
I'm not
reasons.
I'm not even talking about Hall of Fame. I'm just talking about like in
Oh,
general.
that I can tell you the five other ones, and they're all just, they stand for their guy times five. I mean, that's I can hide that for personal.
Well, Vinny, let me tell you about a guy named Randy Gradishar.
Hey,
About 3 hours.
Right.
He said Ron started it off like he was giving us a pitch about, let me tell you about my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And then he said,
I mean,
let me tell you
kind
about
of, sort of.
Randy.
I mean, it's not that different, really.
Listen, the way that Ron talks about Randy Gradishar is what I talk about when it comes to Doc Adams, when it comes to baseball. In that same exact situation. Let me tell you about Doc Adams, like that
I
weird,
have
like,
never heard you talk about Doc Adams, so I don't even compare it. Ron is like nationally, internationally
the next
known for
plug.
his Gradishar stand.
Yes, he is.
Yeah,
yeah,
Randy,
Got to be.
Adams is mostly known for like when I speak to like a lot of baseball people, because I got a whole paper on it back in college.
I'm known for saying brain fart on a CNN TV segment after the Marshawn Lynch the Seahawks Patriots Super Bowl.
no, I saw Randy a couple weeks ago, and I said, "You have no idea. Just trust me."
You let him know.
I'm known for I'm known for three things: pre-NFLers, contributors, and standing Matt Ryan. Yeah, that's what I'm known for.
Okay. Well, he's also known for something else. You can also watch Vinny if you want to see more of him, where Vinny makes the Hall of Fame case for. It depends on who he decides. Sometimes it's some people that you've heard of.
Sometimes it's Pudge Heppelfinger.
Yes.
Actually, I didn't make a case for him, but I did make a case for Charles Fowles, Odie Thompson, and John Bralier.
Okay, all right.
Yes, you did.
I'm not mad at any of those.
No, especially as
He also made a case for the person who drew the first circle.
No. But in case Ron, in case you're curious, my CF Bennett Hall of Fame case is in the pipeline, so don't worry, it will eventually be coming. For those that don't know, CF Bennett invented the jockstrap.
No,
Yeah, that was the one we were waiting for.
You're not doing that.
I know I'm not. I'm just messing around with you guys.
Oh no, he's totally doing it. He feels it in his bones.
I'm not okay. I'm not going to have a 15-minute show about jock straps. I'm not doing
it. He can maybe qualify for the again Hall of Fame.
Your Hall of Fame After Dark segment.
Yes. Well, there is.
Okay, but if I'm going to talk about jock straps, you think I'm going to do that in my After Dark segment with Vinny? I love you, buddy, but that's not what I had in mind.
No worries. Listen, I can make a case for him for the AVN Hall of Fame. I'm sure they'll accept him. They accepted Steve Shubin. Why not?
I don't know who that is.
The guy that invented the fleshlights.
These are pretty important things, Kirk. I know maybe in Canada you don't have to have fleshlights. You find a maple tree and fuck it. I don't know, but kidding. Love you, Kirk.
Isn't Kid Crippen still here? What's wrong with you, Jeff?
Okay. All right.
I like how Ken's all quiet amongst all this.
Okay, well, as we're doing this, and as this has gone off the rails, big shock. Okay, so here we go. So we've got so we've got a tie for three. All right, so let's just say who we
are we doing the nose now? Or are we doing
not yet? Not yet.
With the yeses.
How many? Okay, Jack, how many tied for three?
Four.
Jack is quite. Jack, how many are tied for three?
Said four, and they
Four?
are.
Okay. All right. So. All right. Thanks, Ryan. Thanks for coming. All right. So let's just put in those four that we have. So that's Henry Ellard, Randall Cunningham, Pat Swilling, and Albert Lewis. They've advanced.
Tom's gonna shit a brick to find out the second he left, we put Randall in.
What's that?
Randall stayed in.
No bricks need to be shitted here, Jack. That's good.
It's Shat. It's Shat, Jeff.
It's chat.
It's Shat. That's past
All
tense.
right, random advancing. I love it.
All right. So I know I'm getting older when I have to do this.
These damn computers, they make the type too small. I don't need glasses.
I think you're older than me, so screw off.
No, I was talking about myself.
No, Kirk, you're older than Jeff.
Oh,
Gee,
I
thanks
didn't
a
know that.
lot.
How do I know that? Because I've known Jeff since like what, 2015. I've known you.
Yeah, I'm only 41. I'm not that old.
All right. Well, I am. I'm 50. I'm 50. Okay, I'm 50.
I'm a man.
Oh, man, I'm 40. Oh, pick on somebody, pick on me.
That's so classic.
So, does anybody want to know the actual inside baseball on that whole story?
Please.
So the young man being discussed was a quarterback named Bobby Reed, who later transferred to Texas Southern. And Bobby, some members of the staff have been talking to a young woman reporter, the one that he's yelling at, about their problems or their complaints about Bobby and how they were trying to slowly but surely move Zach Robinson, former Patriot. I know we have a Patriot person here somewhere. Oh, or do we? Maybe. Oh, yeah.
He just left.
Right. Okay. A former Patriot, Zach Robinson. And because, they wanted Bobby to run more, actually, right? They wanted him to use his feet more. Bobby was a good athlete, but Bobby's trying to become a passer, trying to establish himself as a passer, blah, blah, blah. And they wanted him to whatever. So they're complaining, to this reporter off the record, or what, not off the record, but like anonymously, right? One of the members of the staff. And so she published, he didn't say don't publish this. He just said don't use my name. And so in this sort of interesting way, Coach Gundy's going off on her about stuff his staff has actually leaked to the reporter. And then Bobby ends up losing his starting job to Zach Robinson, transfers to Texas Southern, blows out his ACL 6 games into his senior year at Texas Southern, but manages on that. Shout out to the late C.O. Brancato, who should be in the Hall of Fame. Speaking of Hall of Fame, the guy invented the 3-cone drill, super scout C.O. Brancato.
Yes, definitely.
Used to have what they called the last chance pro day. Bobby, still his ACL still partially blown, drives across the state of Texas from East Texas to West Texas.
Oh shit.
Yeah, which is not fun.
Right.
With still one bad knee, but drives across across the state, shows up. Rhett Bomar, right, who formerly had been in Oklahoma and then transferred. He transferred to, I think, Sam Houston, and a few other guys show up there. And despite being on one leg, Bobby throws the ball beautifully. Ends up, knocking around Canada and Marine Leagues for about 3 or 4 years, and goes back and works Oklahoma State, where he's still, I think, director of something at football something at Oklahoma State. But that's the inside baseball, is that it actually was, he's yelling at a young female reporter about stuff his staff had actually leaked to her.
Jack just put in that we so far have 9-19.
Take care, Ken.
See you, Ken. Nice having you.
Thanks so much.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for joining.
My apologies for Jeff's behavior.
Take care, everyone.
Thanks for stopping again.
Thanks,
See you, Ken.
Thank you so much.
Nice meeting you.
Okay, so since we're dropping off, and I do blame Jeff for that. Let's all right, so let's just eliminate 5 people right now in the remaining list.
Well, hold on, Kirk. What happened to McDonald, Lorenzo Neal, and Lomas Brown?
They're here. They're in this group.
Now, they were eliminated at approximately 10:03. We advanced Tillman, Smith, and Coates. And then those are the only 3 we advanced: Lomas Brown, Neal, and others.
But I don't think that eliminated them. I don't think
No, they're not eliminated. They're in this, the last thing that I just sent off. That's the 5 left. So we have this group left.
What? I don't see.
Yeah, because the one that you sent didn't have Neil, Brown, or McDonald on here.
Yeah, look at the 10:03 post. There's a post at 10:03 that had Tillman, Smith, and Coates advance, and those are still alive. I think below that got eliminated.
Oh, so I just
The others were humanely destroyed.
Yeah.
Shut up.
10:03 Central. I don't know what time
Oh, well,
zone
I don't
you're
think-
in,
I
so it
don't
may
think
be
we should
off by
start
an
it.
hour.
Bill waits until Ken drops and then he drops that nugget.
Of course.
Eastern,
I know how to
East,
act with,
I'll just-
I mean, it's different. The company is gone now. Now it's just us.
I don't give a fuck.
Well,
I got into it with a VP today in a year-end calibration session because I told them they were just flat out wrong, and they weren't, and they admitted it. I don't know.
Cranky
Oh,
Jeff
yeah.
is fun Jeff. I like him.
Yeah, man, I'm telling you.
well, yeah, this is why that's why I brought him on. I mean, Jeff's always knows how to bring the fun, and I know that for a fact more than anyone else here.
The only thing I was going to say about Hines Ward is if there was ever a receiver that felt like he belonged in Bears football, I won't scream it because it's so late. It's Hines Ward because you talk more about his blocking than his pass catching.
Yeah.
If there was ever a Chicago Bears wide receiver, he was miscast in life. He should have been a Bear for 15 years. He would be in that Tom Waddle plus class.
Oh, I gotta say that
It
game against the
actually
Dolphins.
ended Keith Rivers' career. Remember that?
Yeah. So I'm saying,
Okay.
like,
Let's go back here. So Jack, you're maybe with this group, we'll just vote for the final 6.
Yeah, so here's what I see. We have 19 now. Okay. Here's who they are: Hester, Revis, Joe Thomas, Zach Thomas, DeMarcus Ware, Patrick Willis, Rondé Barber, Torrey Holt. That was one cutoff. The next group was Andre Johnson, Freeney, Jared Allen, Dalen, Wisniewski, Webb, Wayne. That was another cutoff. Then we added 4: Ellard, Cunningham, Swilling, Lewis. And again, some of these are on the basis that if we want to continue talking about them, where we start a night talking about them instead of ending a night talking about them.
Yep.
I think it's worth putting them into the 25. We're ultimately still probably going to elect some combination of that first 8 anyways. So I think that we should at least include those guys. So now we have 19. We have 6 spots left. The next 4 in that last cut down were Reuben Brown, Leslie O'Neal, Neil Smith, Ben Coates. We also heard pretty impassioned cases made for Lorenzo Neal and Tim McDonald. After that, we have Sean Alexander, Kevin Williams. Feels weird to not have Kevin Williams in our 25 just because of how strongly we all feel about him, and eventually it's like he's got to be there.
Okay, so then let's vote for our 6 for who we have left.
Can we have the whole rest of the remaining list?
So are
of
we putting in our
possibilities?
5 no's, or I'm just trying to make sure I know where we are on the
No,
process.
don't worry about the nose. I
Oh.
think
Yeah, let's
We're
so-
just picking that. We're trying to pick the 6 at this point,
That's
right?
fine.
Jack
I just
Baker?
didn't know what we're doing. Okay.
We just
chose-
need the list.
I chose my 6.
Okay,
Okay.
yeah. So Chris just put that up here. So just for those listening, and then we'll sort of like add some video for this. Vince Wilfork, Kevin Williams, Sean Alexander, James Harrison, Donovan McNabb, Darren Woodson, Steve Smith, Ricky Waters, Willie Anderson, Jari Evans, Jeff Saturday, Eric Allen, Cornelius Bennett, Reuben Brown, Leslie O'Neal, Hines Ward, Charles Tillman, Neil Smith, Ben Coates.
Okay,
And
so we just need
Lorenzo
to
Neal
fix
and
that
Tim
list.
McDonald.
Yeah.
Hold on.
That's
Hold
all
on.
I needed to know.
Neal and McDonald, aren't they still in this?
No,
They
McDonald.
were eliminated at 10:03 Central Time.
Once again,
back to the
as I
chat.
said, they were humanely destroyed.
Yeah.
Or if you think of it this way, they filed a farm where there's much more room for them to play.
We promoted 3 and they were not the top 3 at 10:03 Central Time. Go back in the chat.
No, I saw that back in the chat, Dave. I'm saying I didn't know that was them out. I thought it was those other guys up.
Yeah, those other guys went up and that meant the rest of them were up.
Where's Kevin Williams?
He's
Kevin Williams is one of the ones remaining.
All right, I see. Okay. All right, so 6.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't have any other shows to promote, so
We really haven't talked about
Well,
Darren.
I have something I can promote.
Well, I have something I promote. It's called Darren Woodson. We haven't talked about him. He won 3 rings. He's got multiple first team all pros. Let's not forget him.
I've been putting in Woodson the whole time.
One thing I recommend everyone promotes, go to AmericanFootballInternational.com. I write articles for American football leagues, not in the US. So If you're a fan of Mexican
American.
American football, German American football, hell, even
Japanese.
Finnish American football, please follow AmericanFootballInternational.com. I would greatly appreciate it if anyone goes and reads my articles. Greatly appreciate it. Yes, they have football in Finland.
Yes.
Will do. And you know what? They know who Randy Gradishar is because that's the one thing I did do in London last week.
Yes, London. I'm
Bothered
talking about
everyone
Finland.
he met about Randy Gradishar.
Listen,
They
that's
didn't know before, they know now.
Trust me, they do.
I just want to call out, like, even looking at that list of the first 19 that we have, that's a really damn strong group.
and the
It's
classes.
a really good group. Like, our process got to like a really good list of 19 that balanced out a bunch of different things, including positions.
Yep.
Like, it feels like we've even got some pretty good representation across like all areas of the field.
Mhm. And we'll see how well they match with us.
Yeah, I like the way you put that too, because we are better. So how well do they match with us?
It's kind of what I was going for.
Yeah, I'm just saying. I mean, we got Randall Cunningham into the top 25. They can never seem to do that.
No.
But we also devote a couple of hours to Zoom to actually talk through this, but they're not worthy of that until the finals because they're so fucking busy.
Do they have a side hustle where they'll talk about Battle of the Network Stars? No.
They're busy.
And I bet they
They're
don't
busy.
even know who invented the fleshlight.
What are they missing out on?
They're missing
Well,
out
that
on
was
so
my
much.
that was my favorite Parliament song too.
Yes.
Fleshlight was a Parliament song.
Oh, well, sort of, kind of. He's having a little fun with you there, Vinny.
I love how Bill had to explain that. He's having a little bit of fun with you, kid.
No worries. It's all cool. I can recite all this stuff if I really wanted to, if I really wanted to. And that was one moment because that was a joke I actually did with my friend Joe. He was like saying, "Oh, Vinny, you probably know who invented that." And I said, "Oh, you've been talking about," and I said, "You know about Steve Jobs?" I said, and he said, I love how you said it so confidently, Vinny. You mean the Steve Schumann?" I said, "Yeah, I can do that because
But yeah, you get, if you're gonna do it, like, go big balls, man.
Right.
Like the fucking don't fucking
Feeling
half-ass.
mouthing your way through talking about the inventor of the fleshlight. That's not something you're gonna tiptoe into.
Like when somebody asked me what the greatest movie of all time is, there is only one correct answer and everybody else is wrong. It's Space Jam.
You know,
like, you can hear the conviction in my voice.
Hello, A Night at the Roxbury.
I actually
excuse me, Stephen Doug Butabi did not save the universe from the basketball playing aliens called the Monsters. They had Sean Bradley's power. Sean Bradley, we were doomed. Doomed, I said.
Jeff, I've actually always wanted to ask you about Space Jam. What was the hype like during that time for that movie?
Well, you figure at the time, like we were coming off of the fact that the universe was in peril. And then this true story documentary about how one man teamed up with a team of toons to save the universe. Like, they had Muggsy Bogues' powers, Sean Bradley, Grandmama, Larry Johnson, Charles Barkley. Like, we were fucked, man. And like, here is Black Jesus, as he called himself, coming back to save the universe. And then as a result says, you know what? That fat piece of crap, Jerry Krause, and that dope Jerry Reinsdorf trying to run my shit into the ground. I'm going to come back and win 3 more rings. That's what he did.
There's actually a lot of story about that. For instance, Lola Bunny it was originally Honey Bunny, but they decided to create Lola because they thought Honey looked too much like Bugs and Drag. And at that same time, Warner Brothers created Warner Brothers Feature Animation to compete with Disney. But outside of Space Jam, all their other movies didn't do well. The only one that really stood the test of time is The Iron Giant, which now viewed as one of the greatest animated movies ever made. And the other one is arguably Osmosis Jones, because that's gotten a bit of a cult following since a lot of people's biology classes. And then they decided to shut their doors after Back in Action. Hopefully the Renaissance can continue with The Whale. I'm just saying.
The good thing is they only ever made one Space Jam movie, because you can only, and I want to restate this, there was only one Space Jam movie, because you can't do a second one. I mean, what the fuck are you going to do? You're going to sit there and have LeBron James do it? And what are they going to do? Take Dwight Howard's free throw shooting ability?
Well, they did try to make us a couple sequels. They had tried to do one with Jackie Chan, but that didn't materialize. They were trying to do one with a Tony Hawk, which also never materialized.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Those were a couple movies they tried to get made, but nothing really happened. And even during the build to Space Jam 2, there was a lot of controversy. I mean,
No,
they didn't.
no. There was no such thing as Space Jam 2, Vinny. Stop. Like full stop. I mean, the next thing you're going to try and tell me is that Michael Jordan played baseball. Like these scandalous mainstream media lies that you push.
Hey,
Like
one
this
second.
is
Kirk,
fake
hey,
news.
Kirk, Ron, and Mile High. Have
Yeah,
you
I
guys
thought
voted?
mine were already in there. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
I already have mine in. But here's a question: the movie may not exist, but do the Razzies that LeBron James allegedly won, do those exist?
Yes, I do.
Yes, they do, because that's what he gets for being a perpetual jock sniffer and now stat chaser. Like one thing about being the GOAT is typically you don't have to. Yeah, typically you don't have to actually try and sit in a barbershop segment and sit there and tell everybody, oh, we came back from a 3-1 deficit against a 73-win team. That makes me the GOAT. Yeah, except like Jordan's teams, when he led them, they won 72 games, 69 games the next year. The 92 team won 67 games. Yeah, like.
And you can pick 6, Kirk. You can pick one more.
I actually think that when it comes to like the debate over the greatest, with me, I'm surprised not enough people talk about how great George Mikan was back in the 40s.
Because it was he changed the game, but it was such a inferior style of ball. It's like when you think about, you look at Wilt Chamberlain or Bill Russell's rebounding numbers. Yeah, it's great you could drive down 25 rebounds a game because the number of the bricks that everybody was throwing up. Now, if we want to talk about, and I'm just saying, like, that's the reality, like that's where the numbers compared to era.
Yeah, I know.
If somebody said to me they feel Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is the basketball GOAT, I respect that, because I look at arguably greatest high school player of all time, greatest college player of all time, arguably greatest center of all time. Like when I hear LeBron James, I like make the fart sound.
And he could co-pilot.
That's right.
That's true. He was a better actor than he acted both for the movie, and he also acted as a different person in that movie too.
Well, you're also forgetting his movie with Bruce Lee.
There we go.
Like, yeah. So like
he was also Arnold Jackson's teacher in Different Strokes.
There you go.
So
right.
Okay. So here's what I have. In Mile High, did you ever put anything in, you mystery person?
Don't forget, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was in basketball too.
Or Ron?
Yes.
Going once.
Basketball, that's a cult classic.
Going twice. Sold. All right, here's our class, everybody. So Kevin Williams of the last vote, Kevin Williams and Leslie O'Neal had the most votes. They each had 6, so they're in.
Yay! Cool.
Aaron Woodson was second with 4 votes, so he's in. We now have 3 slots left, and we have 4 people who received 3 votes. So they're all in. Sean Alexander, Ben Coates, Ruben Brown, Neil Smith, and I will type out the class here. So here we go. Our semi-finalists.
Willie Anderson's not one after getting 15 votes. That's crazy.
Jay Thomas, Z Thomas.
The victory shall be ours.
You're like the inverse Tom there, Jeff. His is how high he views Tom Malin. Yours is how low comparatively you view Willie Anderson.
Yeah, but Jeff's bringing a good point. Oh, he's not.
Oh no, I think he's absolutely bringing a good point. I think everyone here has brought up a really good point. The fact that, even though I do like Willie Anderson, I would also argue that, even as someone who has a lot of ties to Bengals fans, because the fact that the stat is still unverified, and the fact that someone like
the stat is bullshit. I want to even like stop saying it's unverified. It's bullshit.
It's bullshit.
He put out a bullshit stat that his coach, like we got to acknowledge, like there's human nature. He's got it. Ben Coates did make it. That's awesome. Willie Anderson.
Hey, Ruben Brown.
All right. So Jack, do you want to read off the entire list here for everyone?
Yeah. Yep. So here's the list, and it's in this specific order. Group number 1. Hester, Revis, both Thomases, Ware, Willis, Rondé Barber, Torrey Holt. Group number 2, Andre Johnson, Freeney, Jared Allen, Tom Malin, Steve Wisniewski, Richmond Webb, Reggie Wayne. Then the next group is Henry Ellard, Randall Cunningham, Pat Swilling, and Albert Lewis. The next group is
Hey,
Kevin-
Leslie O'Neill.
the next group is Kevin Williams, Leslie O'Neill, Darren Woodson, and then the final four are tied for the final three spots: Sean Alexander, Ben Coates, Ruben Brown, Neil Smith.
Well, Neil Smith too, right?
Neil
Yeah.
Smith, yeah.
Okay.
So we have a class of 26.
So Neil Smith isn't on your list right there.
Yeah, you just don't, you didn't type them in there.
I didn't type them in, my bad.
And just take this to the 49 Hall of Fame voters, top this. Once again, you will fail to do so.
I think this is a way better class too, and it's way more varied and way more fair. I gotta say, I think we did an exceptional job. Seriously.
All right. Well, with that, thank you for staying here, even though it sort of fell off the rails. I blame Jeff. Because as my dad always said, only an idiot blames himself. My
That's
dad.
right.
Yes. So it can't be my fault. So with that, the Bucknerverse, this is the official Bucknerverse thing, we bid you adieu. Thank you all, and look for a lot more stuff here from NotInHallOfFame.com. Take care, everyone.